Welcome to r/relationships, where Karen is demanding her husband cuts off his best friend. My wife wants me to cut off contact with my girl best friend after the birthday gift she gave me. My wife and I have been married for 5 years and together for 10. Growing up, I was really close friends with my next door neighbor, Emma. We were inseparable, and it felt like we were adopted siblings. We did everything together, from playing outside to helping each other through tough times. It was a great friendship, and we kept it going through adulthood. She was even the best woman at my wedding. Emma and my wife get along, though they're not super close. They're friendly and respectful of each other, but I wouldn't say they're best friends or anything. They do enjoy each other's company though. A few months ago, my mom showed me a childhood photo of me and Emma. I had totally forgotten about it, but when I saw it, it brought back so many memories. In the picture, I'm showing Emma the stars in the sky, pointing up with excitement while she's just lying on the ground, looking up at me and smiling. It was one of those moments where you realize how much you've cared for someone all your life, and that picture just felt like a snapshot of a perfect, innocent bond. It's probably the cutest picture I've ever seen. I showed the photo to both my wife and Emma, and they both agreed it was adorable. We all thought it was a sweet memory of our childhood and a reminder of how close Emma and I have always been. Yesterday was my birthday, and we had a small party with a few close friends. When I opened Emma's gift, I was totally surprised. It was a framed version of that childhood photo. She had made one for herself too and hung it on her wall. She told me how much that memory meant to her, and honestly, I thought it was a really thoughtful and meaningful gift. The whole group thought it was pretty cool, and everyone commented on how it showed the strength of our bond. But later that night, when I was talking to my wife, she dropped a bombshell. She told me I needed to cut off contact with Emma because she thought the gift was inappropriate. I was completely taken aback. I asked her why, and she said it felt like it had romantic connotations, especially since Emma had hung the same photo up on her wall. I tried to explain that it wasn't like that. It was just a picture of us and we had grown up together like siblings. There was nothing romantic about it. I figured maybe she was just a little tipsy and overreacting, so I told her to sleep on it. This morning, my wife apologized, saying she overreacted last night, but she still believes it was an inappropriate gift, especially since Emma has the photo hanging on her wall. She said it felt too personal, like it signified something more than just a childhood memory. I've tried explaining that it just shows the strong, sibling-like bond we've always had, and that's it. But now I'm feeling a little confused. Am I missing something here? I honestly don't see anything wrong with the gift, and I don't think it was meant to be anything more than a sweet gesture. But I also want to respect my wife's feelings. So, am I the jerk for thinking it was a harmless and meaningful gift, or is my wife right to feel uncomfortable about it? This isn't about the picture. Your wife feels insecure, and this is the last straw for her. You should figure out why she feels this way. That doesn't mean that you're wrong. It does mean that you owe it to your marriage to listen to your wife and figure this out. How close are you and Emma? Maybe your wife feels like this is an emotional affair. How much contact do you and Emma have? Your wife feels insecure about your connection because you've known each other for so long. Maybe she feels like she can't compete with that. It's time for a long talk or even couples therapy. My ex also had a very good friend like a sister. They had a beautiful baby together later down the road. I have long-term guy friends that I'm super close with, but have never had a romantic relationship with, and I can tell you, I would never think to give this kind of a gift. I would expect this would make their partners uncomfortable. Giving you a photo? Yes. But framing it and expecting your wife to display it with pride? No. I also definitely know I wouldn't be keeping a matching one for my wall. That seems like a bit much. I understand your perspective, but I also really get where your wife's coming from. Bro, you're a married man. Respect your wife. You and Emma can be friends without all this sentimental stuff. That's what romantic partners do. You are dense as a pole if you can't see it. You'll see a lot of BS answers in these comments. I have long-term, 40 to 50 years at this point, male and female friendships. I would give that gift, and I would love to be given that gift. We're friends, and there's nothing wrong with that. People who say there is something wrong with it have obviously never had deep, meaningful connections that were non-romantic, and that's so very sad. The most intimate relationships I've ever had were never romantic in nature. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for denying my ex his son after he left us and I made the choice alone to give him up for adoption? I, 32 female, had a baby boy when I was 16. Yeah, I know how that sounds. No, we weren't careful. Judge me all you want. I've already spent years dealing with that. Back then, my boyfriend Mike, who's 33 now, and I were high school sweethearts, or so I thought. The moment I found out I was pregnant, he pulled a full disappearing act with some serious backup from his family. Something about him being a future college star and needing to keep his options open. Whatever. My parents were very blunt about the situation. They told me it was my choice what to do next. I thought about it a lot. Not having it wasn't for me, though I fully respect the right to choose. It just wasn't what I wanted. After a lot of sleepless nights and soul-searching, I decided to give the baby up for adoption. My parents knew a sweet couple who had been trying to adopt for years. We met them, and I just knew they were the right people. That decision turned my whole situation into something that felt almost like a surrogacy. I started homeschooling to finish high school and get some rest. The adoptive parents were incredible. They were with me through the whole process, supported me, and even covered most of the medical costs. The adoptive mom, a teacher, helped me with my schoolwork and prepped me for college. When the baby was born, I made a choice not to hold him. His real mother, the one who would raise him, did. It felt right. Fast forward to now, he's no longer a baby. He knows who I am, and he calls me his special aunt. He's happy, and so am I. He's got a great life, and I have no regrets about my decision. We only talk occasionally, but that's honestly perfect. He even jokes that if he ever needs a kidney, I'm on speed dial. He's got my sense of humor, apparently. Go figure. As for my life, I got married 6 years ago to Aaron, who's 44. He was divorced, but on good terms with his ex, Bella, who's 40. They have 2 kids, a son who's 16 and a daughter who's 19. Aaron was upfront from the start about Bella being a permanent part of his life as the mother of his kids. I respected that. I also told both Aaron and Bella about my teen pregnancy. Bella and I actually get along great. She's a friend, not some rival or awkward presence. I know her place in her kids' lives isn't up for competition. My stepdaughter and I have a more casual relationship. We're close, but she's understandably closer to her mom. We still hang out sometimes for girls' days. My stepson, though, is super close to me. He calls me his other mom and always wants me at his important events. We bonded when we both lost pets around the same time, and we've been tight ever since. Now for the chaos. A few weeks ago, my stepson had a minor medical procedure that required anesthesia. Neither Aaron nor Bella could take the day off, so I went with him. Everything went fine. Afterward, I was settling him in the car when one of the doctors approached me. It took me a minute to recognize him, but it was Mike. He started rambling about how he had thought about me and our son for years. He went on about how sorry he was and how he wasn't ready to be a father back then. Honestly, it took me a minute to realize what he was even talking about. I finally cut him off and told him that this wasn't the baby he was thinking of. I explained that I had given the baby up for adoption and that I'm now married and have stepkids. My stepson, still groggy, chimed in with, "Other mom," which almost made me laugh. Mike looked stunned. I told him the baby was adopted, has a great life, and knows who I am. I also made it crystal clear that I didn't want him in my life and that I wouldn't give him any contact info for the adoptive family. He's 16 years too late. I got in the car and took my stepson home. That should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. Mike found me on social media and has been posting this dramatic sob story about how I stole his chance to be a father. He called me a terrible mother who threw away her kid to raise someone else's. He's got some of our former classmates eating it up, but most people called him out for leaving me in the first place. Apparently, some of his high school buddies even remembered him laughing about leaving me pregnant back then. Good to know. A few friends said it was wrong of me to not tell Mike about the adoption, but honestly, I don't think I owe him anything. I left the choice up to the internet masses. So Reddit, am I the jerk? For clarity, the adoptive family does have a way to contact Mike's parents if they ever want to. That's their decision, not mine. I'm just not handing over that info to Mike. When he left you and his son, he made the choice of not being a part of his or your life, and you don't need to tell him anything else. The decision of adoption was yours, and you did what you thought was right, and that's normal. You didn't deny him anything. He did it to himself. Not the jerk. Your biological kid might decide for himself to try and find his dad one day, but it's your job to defend his privacy until then, and make sure his decision is informed. As in, he knows that his biological dad is a complete jerk. Am I the jerk for skipping my brother's wedding because his fiancé excluded my wife from the guest list? My brother James is getting married next month, and what should have been an exciting family event has turned into an absolute mess. The problem? His fiancée Emily didn't invite my wife Lisa to the wedding. Now let me give some context. Emily and Lisa have never been besties, but it's not like they've ever had a screaming match or anything. They're just very different people. Lisa is super outgoing, the kind of person who can walk into a room of strangers and leave with 10 new friends. Emily, on the other hand, is quiet, keeps to herself, and honestly can come off as a little standoffish. This drama started last year during a family vacation. Lisa was her usual self, chatting with everyone at the resort, including strangers. She wasn't being obnoxious, just her normal bubbly self. But apparently, this didn't sit well with Emily. After the trip, Emily told James that Lisa was attention-seeking and accused her of making the vacation about herself. I didn't think much of it back then because it just seemed like a personality clash. Fast forward to now, and Emily has decided Lisa isn't welcome at the wedding. When I found out, I was floored. I went straight to James, thinking he'd back me up, but no. He admitted it was Emily's decision and said he didn't want to argue with her because it's her day. He told me I should respect Emily's wishes and come alone to keep the peace. I couldn't believe it. Lisa and I have been married for 5 years. She's not just some random +1, she's family. Excluding her feels incredibly disrespectful, not just to her, but to me too. I told James I wasn't comfortable attending without my wife. His response? He accused me of being dramatic and punishing him for something out of his control. He even said I was letting Lisa's hurt feelings ruin his wedding. Our parents have weighed in, and of course, they're split. My dad agrees with me and thinks James and Emily are being completely unreasonable. My mom, on the other hand, says I should just suck it up and go to the wedding and not let this one day destroy my relationship with James. Lisa, meanwhile, is devastated. She feels completely disrespected and excluded and has said multiple times that she would never do something like this if the roles were reversed. She's trying to be supportive and says she'll understand whatever I decide, but I know deep down she'd be crushed if I went without her. This whole situation has put a strain on our marriage. She feels like I'm not standing up for her enough, and I get why she feels that way. At the same time, James is my only sibling, and we've always been close. I know skipping his wedding would hurt him and could even damage our relationship permanently. Part of me wonders if I should just go to avoid creating a bigger rift. But another part of me feels like this is bigger than one day. It's about standing up for what's right and not letting someone treat my wife like she doesn't matter. So now I'm stuck. If I go to the wedding without Lisa, I feel like I'm betraying her and compromising my values. But if I skip the wedding, I risk hurting James and possibly ruining our relationship. I don't know how to win in this situation, and it's tearing me up inside. Am I the jerk for refusing to go to my brother's wedding without Lisa? Not the jerk. Turn it around on him and ask how he would feel if the roles were reversed. How would his fiancé feel if it were reversed? The fiancé is joining this family, and she should bear that in mind. Your wife is already in that family. You can't choose who your family is, least of all who your siblings marry, but you can tolerate them. It's the fiancé who's causing this rift, not you. Not the jerk. Do not go without your wife. Emily is causing the division, not you. It's your brother's day too. He should have a say on who attends his wedding. If anything, standing by your wife's side will show him how to be a better husband or maybe to consider finding a better wife. Tell him this. Listen, bro, I love you, but your wife has put us in a tough situation. I'm not coming to your wedding without my wife, period, end of story. She's a part of this family too. If your wife ever wants to apologize, we'll be here to listen. I love you and hope y'all have a great day. Just divorce your wife. Honestly, if you're even considering going, just divorce your wife. Your wife doesn't deserve this. Let her go so a man with more respect for her can come into her life. A man with a family who will embrace and respect her for the simple fact that she is deciding to spend her life with him. This is clearly not you. Am I the jerk for not knowing my girlfriend wanted to be 30 minutes early to yoga? For context, my girlfriend is working on her yoga certifications, and today she's hosting a free public class. The night before, I went to bed thinking we just needed to be there before 10 a.m. I had no idea she had any other plans beyond that. So this morning, I went for a walk with my buddy who recently had a baby. We grabbed coffee and took his daughter out in her stroller. I left the house at 8:30 a.m., already dressed and ready for yoga, planning to head back out as soon as I got back. Around 9:20, I started getting texts from my girlfriend. At first, it was simple stuff like, "Where are you?" But I could tell she was freaking out. I didn't understand why, since I knew I had enough time to get home, pick her up, and drive to the studio before 10. Still, I cut the walk short and headed home. While I was on my way back, her text got more intense. "How could you do this to me?" And "I'm so stressed out." By the time I got home, it was 9:35. I hopped in the car and we left. On the drive, she was crying, saying things like, "Why can't you think?" and "This is like a job interview." She kept repeating how she needed to be there 30 minutes early and how I had thrown off her rhythm as a teacher. I didn't know what to say because none of this was communicated to me beforehand. To me, this was framed as a casual event. I thought leaving before 10 gave us more than enough time for any prep she might need. She kept crying and asking, "Why can't you just think?" I tried explaining that I genuinely had no idea she needed to be there earlier than what we had discussed. I didn't want to fight in the moment, so I said, "We're going in circles, and this is wasting time. Let's focus on getting through the class, and we can talk about this later." Once we got to the studio at 9:50, she was still upset. She wanted me to help her get back into the right mindset, but at the same time, she'd say things like, "Why are you acting like the victim?" I told her I didn't feel like I'd done anything wrong. I wasn't trying to dismiss her feelings, but if this class was so critical and she needed to be there extra early, she had plenty of time to tell me. She could have said something to me the night before, or even that morning before I left for my walk. All I knew was we had to be there before 10, and we were. Now I'm stuck feeling like the bad guy, even though I think she's overreacting. I don't know how to handle this when I see her after the class or when I pick her up later. I don't want to argue, but I also don't want to act like I'm 100% at fault. I don't know. You had a rush to get her there by 9:50. What time would you have got her there if she hadn't rushed you? If I were nervous about something super important to me, I'd want to be early to set up and center myself. I think you just added extra stress on a day that was already a lot emotionally. Either way, communicating about these kinds of expectations helps. So next time, you know to ask how early, and she knows to communicate that to you. Neither is the jerk, unless it keeps happening over and over. She should have communicated better, but making a casual plan immediately before a necessary event does cause extra pressure and stress. You rushed home and made it there by 9:50. If you hadn't rushed, or if she hadn't rushed you, I don't see how you would have even made the agreed upon time of before 10. Not the jerk. If she needed to be there by 9:30, she should have told you that. You shouldn't have had to assume anything. She needs to tell you. She comes off as entitled. Karen is blaming me for what her dog ate. Now he might not survive. I was hosting a big garden party this weekend. I invited my entire friend group plus their partners. One of my friends takes her dog everywhere. I told her no pets were allowed. Although it was a garden party, we were in and out of my home, and I have 4 cats. My cats do not like dogs, and neither do I. Anyway, my friend showed up with her dog. I told her that her dog was not welcome in my home or my garden, and I asked her to please take her dog home or elsewhere. I thought my friend left. I went inside to sort out some things. I went into my garden about 15 minutes later, and my friend was standing there in my garden talking to our friends. She doesn't live that close, so I was confused. I went to ask her how she got back so quickly, and she told me she was just popping in and that she was going to go home since her dog isn't welcome. I asked her where her dog was, and she shrugged her shoulders and said that he was around. I went looking and found him at the bottom of the garden eating my crops and making a mess. I was angry and told my friend to get her dog off my property. A few hours later, she called me asking what my dog ate. I had no clue. My gardener plants and attends everything. I told her I didn't know, but I told her that he had made a huge mess, dug things up, and clearly eaten things. She shouted at me that her dog is sick and that I need to find out what the dog ate. I told her I had no idea, but I'd text the gardener to ask, but it was really her problem. I did send the text, but my gardener didn't answer. My friend called again, wanting to know what her dog ate, but I told her I still didn't know. She told me I obviously don't care if her dog makes it and called me a jerk. I still don't know what her dog ate, but apparently he's very sick and he might not make it. I feel bad, but I told her not to bring the dog onto my property, so I don't feel responsible like she says I am. Am I the jerk? ETA. After being unable to reach my gardener, I took pictures of everything the dog dug up, which was a lot, and sent them to my friend. But I have no idea what he ate and what it dug up. And for all I know, whatever he ate isn't even pictured because the whole section is a mess. This wasn't good enough for her. She wants me to tell her exactly what he ate, and I just don't know and don't want to spend hours trying to figure it out when I don't even know if it can be figured out. Edit 2. My cats are house cats. They don't go in my garden and aren't at risk of getting sick from whatever my gardener is growing. My garden is huge, and what's growing changes often, so no, I don't keep track of what's planted. Update. I blocked my ex-friend after dozens of nasty calls and texts, but I got an update from a mutual friend. The dog is at the dog hospital and he's pretty sick, but is expected to make a full recovery. I managed to contact my gardener eventually. It looks like the dog ate some potatoes or something. A lot was destroyed, so even my gardener isn't 100% sure what was eaten, but he thinks maybe the pesticides were the problem. All info from gardener was passed to my ex-friend. Ex-friend has seen this post and is very angry about it. Everyone say hi to Suzanne. Not the jerk. You asked her nicely not to bring the dog, but yet she did. You asked her to leave, but yet she didn't. She wasn't even watching her dog. If her dog doesn't make it, it's on her. I love dogs. Yes, I'm one of those people who likes animals more than other people. People suck. I do not like OP's friend. She's not a dog person. A dog person would pay attention to what their dog was doing. would never take their dog into a situation where they're not wanted, and would never let their dog off leash in a large garden where they don't know what plants are around and what could be toxic to their dog. Not the jerk, OP. I know that you'll feel bad if the dog doesn't make it. It just did what dogs do. Your friend is the problem. I mostly just feel sorry for the dog having such an irresponsible parent. Your yard wasn't dog safe, but you made it pretty clear the dog was not welcome. Your friend ignored that, and it's her dog who almost paid the price for it. Super sad, and you're not the jerk. Your friend is a super duper mega jerk though. She's saying you don't care if her dog makes it, but she ought to look at herself. Poor doggo deserves better. Am I the jerk for splashing women with water at the pool? I'm female 31, and swimming is my hobby and how I keep healthy. My favorite swimming pool is a local university pool. As a graduate, I have access, but they also have community hours for when people from the town can pay and swim. It doesn't do lane swimming, but typically everyone knows how to stay away from those doing laps. I was doing laps at the far end with the pool wall on my side, so I couldn't move if I wanted to. I was mid-session when two women my age jumped right in front of me and just stood there by the wall on the shallow end. I couldn't stop in time and pushed from the wall between them, forcing them to move aside. I was being more careful next lap, but they just kept standing there. There was plenty of space on the other side of the pool where they could stand and chat without bothering anyone, but they chose to stand right in front of me. So I continued swimming, pushing from the wall. If they refused to move, I just turned in water, making sure to make a big splash. I took a break to drink some water, and one of them started screaming at me about how I got her hair all wet. I told her it's her fault, and I continued swimming. She waited for me in the changing rooms and went on about how I was inconsiderate and I ruined her hair. I told her to buzz off. She started going off at me and started screaming, calling me a jerk. I grabbed my stuff and went to one of the cubicles to have a shower and change. When I was leaving, they were talking to the manager. One of them was crying about their hair. I told my sister, and she thinks I was the jerk, but I didn't think so before. Now, with my sister agreeing, I worry that I might have been. Am I the jerk? Edit. Just to add, I was the only person there when they came in. They had the whole pool to stand. They chose purposefully to stand in front of me without swimming at all. Edit 2. The pool is 25 meters long, and you swim lengthwise, from deep to shallow end and back. They had the whole shallow end wall free, except for the meter or so I used for kicking off. I didn't take the whole shallow end. Who would do laps there, except for kids? Edit 3. While there's no designated lap lanes, lap swimming isn't forbidden. Typically, during open swim, 75% of swimmers do lap swimming. They weren't older ladies. They were about my age, early 30s. I didn't leave the pool to grab water. I had water on the edge, along with my other stuff for drills or my earplugs, etc. This is perfectly normal and acceptable. If you go to a pool but don't want to get your hair wet, you wear a hair cap. Simple as that. You already were there. Those two had all the pool space, but chose to stand there and get mad at you for something they could have avoided in more than one way. Not the jerk. Oh no, my hair got wet. Ma'am, this is a pool. OP, out of curiosity, did you ask if they would mind moving elsewhere so that you wouldn't accidentally splash them? I mean, not the jerk, and anyone with a lick of common sense and not insanely entitled would move on their own, but you didn't mention that you spoke to the women. Still, it's ridiculous that they're upset that they got wet in a pool, especially as you were there first and they clearly saw you doing laps. How entitled were those ladies to plop themselves in front of a person doing laps and then get angry that they got splashed? And tell your sister that you are very upset that she sided with these ladies who purposefully blocked your laps when you were there first. Am I the jerk for leaving my brother's kids and hanging out with my boyfriend? My brother Derek is 27 and has been married to his wife, Sophie, not real names, who's 26 for 2 years, and they have 2 kids, a 4-year-old son and a 6-month-old daughter. They never really had much money, and recently they had to move back in with my parents. I also live with my parents and just finished my first year at community college. I'm 19, female. When my siblings moved out, my parents gave me the master bedroom, but when Derek and Sophie moved in, I got moved to a smaller room and they got the master bedroom. None of it bothered me because they're going through a hard time, but Sophie gave me a schedule and said that this is the kids' daily routine. I asked what she meant, and she said it's for when she's at work. I told Sophie that I'm not going to watch her kids, and I never said I was. My mom told me that she meant to talk to me about it, and basically, because class is over and my parents work full-time, I should watch their kids. If Derek and Sophie asked me, I would have said no, because I work part-time in the evening and I'm really stressed, but they could have at least asked instead of just assuming I would. Yesterday, Sophie thanked me for watching her kids and left before I could say anything, so I called my best friend and told her that my brother would pay her when he got home. I spent the entire day with my boyfriend. I got a call from my brother yelling at me, saying that I put his kids in danger. My friend is getting an early childhood education degree. She does babysitting regularly, and she's great with kids. When I got home, Derek and Sophie yelled at me, saying that they couldn't afford a babysitter and that I'm selfish, but I knew that if I just watched the kids, they would use me like that all summer. My dad agrees with me, but my mom says I could have just watched them. I would like everyone to know that my friend was paid. I would never ever let her go unpaid, but my brother did not have the extra money to spare. My friend also knew a little before I left the kids with her, and now she knows everything. My mother's really upset with me for going away after my sister's mental breakdown. My brother made a bunch of investments, and he's in a lot of debt. I told Sophie that she could put them in daycare, but she didn't want to do it because it would corrupt them. Also, my friend charged him $35. It would have been more, but because I'm her friend, she gave them a discount. Edit. I did this post in a rush while I was mad. I'm also new to Reddit. I wanted to get the lingo right. I was going to fix the grammar, but now I'm not, because if that's what you're worried about, you missed the point. Go get the list of kids' routines and put the cost on each of them. Then give it back to them. Since you guys assume I work for you, here's my rates. Not the jerk. You are absolutely right. They're trying to push you into free childcare duty all summer for kids who aren't even yours. I would not agree, and I would let them know that you will be out of the house all day every day, so they'd better come up with a paid babysitter to watch their kids or put them in actual childcare. And then make good on your promise and go to the library or a coffee shop every day for at least a week or two until they find someone to watch their kids. Not your responsibility. Woman wasn't expecting she would be having a riding buddy. This malicious compliance takes place in the Czech Republic, where many people are often really grumpy. My girlfriend, who's 30, and I, male 21, were waiting for a bus ride to go to her hometown for a wedding. As you'd expect, we had 3 bags, and they were packed to the point where zipping the bag required you to sit on it, especially her bag, as she was one of the bridesmaids. Before we boarded the bus, we had to wait for the passengers who had paid beforehand to reserve seats. My girlfriend and I had not prepaid. We were in somewhat of a line, which allowed for the passengers who reserved seats to pass. The line for unreserved seat passengers was essentially respected, except by this woman. She arrived when the line was somewhat being formed and decided to stand next to us. As our turn to board was coming up, she quickly scooted in front of my girlfriend and looked forward as if she was completely oblivious to the fact she had done something that was traditionally frowned upon. My girlfriend was obviously quite annoyed and started saying out loud, in English, much of the older generation in this country doesn't understand English very well. Well, that's a jerk thing to do. Can you believe this woman? I was calm as I had counted how many people had already boarded the bus, and there was still a good chance we'd find seats together in the unreserved rows. So I didn't think it called for any type of confrontation. Still, I had calmly responded, "Let's be honest, we can't be surprised when jerks do jerk things." Looking back, it was unnecessary, but I also was tired and the bags were heavy, so I was a bit impatient. We finally sit down and my girlfriend chose to sit in the 2 free seats behind her. I would have chosen the seats in front of her and then just slowly reclined my seat back every few minutes so that she wouldn't have noticed my little act of revenge, but this ended up being better. It's important to note that the row this woman chose was the last row with an overhead shelf for bags. The shelf was a little longer in the front, so every person essentially had space for their bag if they moved their bags a little towards the front of the bus. It's also important to mention that the shelf was essentially empty, and I could have placed another 5 bags next to ours if I wanted to. We finally hit the road, and the woman is talking on the phone, loudly I might add, saying how she's going to visit her grandson who is so sweet, but that he plays metal music in his room and she can't stand the sound of it. After she finishes the call, she takes off her windbreaker and plans to put it above her seat. She finally sees that my bag is directly above her seat, and instead of moving her jacket 35 centimeters to the right on the shelf or setting her jacket on the empty seat beside her, she decides to confront me in an entitled tone. "Excuse me, young man, but I can't put my jacket anywhere because your fat bag is in the way." I was bored, so decided to act like this was a tragedy. "Oh no, what will we do? Maybe if we put our heads together we can find a solution." Her face turned from shock to old grandma rage. She yelled back, "Well, Don't you know that the shelf space is for the person directly below the seat? Oh, I'm sorry. I truly didn't know that was like an unspoken rule. So the space above your seat is only for you and the potential passenger next to you? I say, truly acting sorry and embarrassed. Yes it is. So please move it to your spot, she says, acting victorious. Of course, right away. I quickly get up and take my girlfriend's bag off the shelf and place it on the seat where I was sitting next to her. I keep my bag in the exact same spot and plop myself right next to the old woman with a grin. The look on her face was absolutely priceless as she was trying to understand what just happened. I smile at her, take my headphones out, and play some death metal way too loud so that she can definitely hear it. I might have hearing loss. I don't even like death metal, but it was definitely worth it knowing she was annoyed the whole time. My girlfriend was sad I didn't sit next to her for the bus ride, but she ultimately agreed it was the best way to get back at her. P.S. This is my first post on Reddit, so I hope I chose the right place to put it. Am I the jerk? I didn't include a group member's name in a group project. I had a very difficult final assignment which happened to be group work. We didn't get to pick our groups and it was all random. This assignment was worth 24% of our grades and it mattered a lot. When it was announced that it would be group work, one of my classmates, let's call her Anne, had a very happy reaction to it. Which is fine, but her reasoning was that group work assignments make her relieved because she can always be sure her work is correct at the end with no worries. This made me mad since I've worked with this girl on 2 other projects that same semester and her work was absolutely horrible. She always finished her portion minutes before submission time and I always had to change it, a lot, because it was often incorrect. I even took many of her parts because I simply couldn't trust her work. So her saying that she's relieved that this assignment was a group project made me so mad. Unfortunately, once the teams were announced, I ended up with her in a group again. I think because our names are close alphabetically. But I was fine with it since the other 2 were smart students. When time came for us to start working on this assignment, I noticed that she always responded to the group chat and I was happy with her contribution until the day we worked on it came. I sent a Zoom link for all of the group members to join so we could start and finish our assignment that day. It was short, but really complicated assignment. But this time, Anne didn't respond to anything despite the fact that she agreed the day prior to the timing we picked. She didn't join any second of the meeting. When we finished the assignment, which took us around 5 to 6 consecutive hours, we created a cover page and included all of our names, including Anne's. But after we left the meeting, I removed Anne's name and waited until everyone in my group submitted it to completely delete the document. Around the same time, Anne messaged the group chat saying she was feeling a bit sick and went to the hospital. My other team members told her it's fine and assumed she still had access to the document. But when she tried looking for it, she couldn't find it and asked me to send her a copy, which I did, but it wasn't related to our assignment at all. Of course she wouldn't know since she didn't contribute to it. The grades were released and Anne failed that course because of that assignment. My other group members are calling me a jerk for removing her name secretly and lying about the document, and that she was sick and had an excuse, but I don't believe an ounce of it. Edit. As I've said in the comments, I should have been the bigger person and made everything work without sabotaging. Actually, people were surprised with what I did since it really isn't like me and I'm usually a shy people pleaser. Even my friends that I told this story to said that. But I've been taken advantage of many times, especially academically, and I always gave in and I took on all of the weight myself. I'm really bad at standing up for myself since I rarely do it, and the way I handled this situation proves it. Since I rarely do it, I went hard this time and didn't notice the extent until I read everyone's judgment on here. I genuinely thought I wasn't the jerk, but now I'm viewing it in a completely different way. I hope both Anne and I learned from this situation and the mistakes that we made. And I think we were both being jerks here and we both handled the situation incorrectly. Of course you're the jerk. You should have at least checked with the other group members. Instead, you played God. You should have discussed this problem with the instructor when the groups were announced. There may have been a solution that didn't include underhanded, lying submissions. You have ruined your reputation with everyone that knows. Who will want to work with you going forward? You're the jerk. Secretly sabotaging a group member. Nasty. The adult approach would have been raising it directly with that particular group member and then the rest of the team. It's meant to be teamwork for a reason, so that each can learn to effectively produce within a team dynamic. You acted unilaterally. You failed the assignment. Bruh, what's wrong with you people on Reddit? You really think someone deserves to get a good grade when they didn't even contribute to the project? Something tells me y'all were the same ones who liked group projects because you thought you didn't have to do anything. Calm down now, Karen. You're talking way too much common sense. Do you know how many people are gonna get mad at you? I don't care anymore, Reddit boy. You can't live your life trying to be liked by people who don't have common sense. Well, yeah, but what if we lose subscribers? Then maybe we'll gain some who have common sense. Subscribe now if you're not an idiot. Yowza kanowza. Am I the jerk for telling my mother-in-law that she's not allowed to meet our kids anymore? My husband and I have 2 kids, 5, daughter, and son, who's 8. After a very horrible birth with my elder one, I decided I'm not ready to go through that again, but we still wanted more kids. So 5 years ago, we adopted. My mother-in-law cares for our family, but she makes her preference for Malcolm more than clear. To begin, she was absolutely furious hearing that I would not be having another biological kid and was instantly disapproving. After hearing we were going to adopt, her anger turned into rage. She screamed about how we didn't know the parentage of the kid and might end up bringing in someone who would disgrace her lineage. My husband was able to calm her down. Thankfully, when she saw little Julia, it seemed like this was all behind us. Yesterday, mother-in-law decided to visit us. My husband was away on a trip, so she was just helping around. I was absolutely exhausted, so I asked if I could go down for a nap, and she was more than green. After a few hours, she woke me up and informed me that she was about to leave. All was good. I was cooking in the kitchen, and all of a sudden I hear a loud bang, preceded with a crying Julia. When I rushed into the hall, I see Malcolm towering over me. "You're not real. All of this is mine," he started screaming, which was incredibly confusing to say the least. After calming them down, I asked Malcolm what he meant. He then revealed that Grandma Muriel had told him that he was Mommy and Daddy's real son. This made me incredibly mad. I asked him what else Grandma had told him, and he told me all about how she had been telling him that Julia wasn't really his sister, and how he should get extra attention for being extra special, how he's always going to be Grandma's favorite grandson, and so much more. Blinded with rage, I blocked Muriel on everything after sending her a text detailing her actions and how this was absolutely unacceptable, and how she'd never be seeing her grandkids until they're much older and understand the situation so they wouldn't be swayed by her words. I probably overreacted, to be fair. She is quite an old lady. After he returned, we got into quite the argument. To say the least, my husband disagreed. He adores his mother and told me that stopping her from seeing the kids is inhumane. She's simply old-fashioned, and she didn't know her words would bring this big of an impact or some such. We will be having a civil discussion about this later. Edit. I'm sorry I didn't clarify this earlier, but both Julia and Malcolm know that she's adopted. I've had this conversation with both the kids, although I've had it separately with both of them. I think I might have to have this conversation once again and make sure Julia knows that it doesn't matter whether she's adopted or not. You have a serious problem in your family, and you need to get into counseling to fix it immediately before he ruins your daughter's life. And you need to prepare for the fact that your husband may never really love or protect her, and you will have to be the one who protects her from both of them, not the jerk. You can either support me in my decision to hold your mother accountable for her actions, or I will file for divorce. This is a hard deal breaker for me. What your mother did was unforgivable in my eyes, and I will not allow our kids to be raised to think they aren't really brother and sister because your ignorant mother thinks our adopted kid is less than our biological one. So you need to pack a bag and go stay somewhere else, because I can't even look at you right now. I am beyond disappointed that you don't see anything wrong with what your mother said or did, or the fact that your son acted like this because of it. Pull your head out of your backside, or I will do what I have to do to protect our kids, even if that means ending this marriage. Not the jerk. OP. I think this might just be where this goes. If my husband doesn't agree to cut her off of our kids, I'm done. Their mental health, happiness, and relationship with each other is more important than a husband who won't see that he's actively hurting by neglecting them, more so also ruining her perception in front of his son. Thank you for this comment. Also, it doesn't really matter whether or not your mother-in-law understands what kind of impact this could have on Julia. Her intentions honestly don't mean anything, because no matter the intention, the outcome will be the same for Julia, believing that she's a second-class citizen. But hey, good to know that your husband apparently cares more about his mother's feelings than your daughter's, who is 5 and could develop serious problems from this. It honestly sounds like he expects to just have Julia suck it up or understand that grandma is old and doesn't mean it. But why is expecting so much emotional maturity from a literal 5-year-old while expecting none from his own mother? Am I the jerk? My husband says I was being ungrateful for his Mother's Day efforts. I say that there almost was no effort. My husband is my kids, who's 11, daughter, and 14, son, stepdad. He's been with me since they were 4 and 7. Mother's Day comes. I get up first, make coffee. Husband gets up an hour later, and little by little the kids get up. By 10 a.m., I've gone to the gym and we're doing yard work. 14-year-old took his headphones off long enough to ask me when I was running him to a friend's graduation party later. At one point, about 9, I had mentioned to him the kids hadn't even acknowledged Mother's Day at all. He went into 11-year-old's room to tell her to make me a card, apparently. He did get me flowers on Friday and chocolate-covered strawberries and a mini cake. I would like to point out now that I'm diabetic. And not only that, he has told me that my lack of care for my diabetes, I hadn't been maintaining my sugar at all, trying to get on track. My diet and my weight have been making him feel completely disrespected because it's important his partner care for herself. By 10 a.m., I was putting yard waste in a bag and he asked me what was wrong. I told him that no one had acknowledged the day at all. His exact words were, "Did you seriously need me to actually say the words?" And it was said in a very angry tone. Then he had gone on about how my daughter was drawing a card as we speak and how he tried to make the day special when he got me flowers and the stuff I wasn't supposed to eat on Friday. Later, I sent the 14-year-old to walk to Walgreens to get a card for his friend's graduation party and a Mother's Day card for his grandmother. He does not bother to get me a card. The day before, husband took 11-year-old to the mall for something to do during a power outage, didn't get me a card, etc. Later, I made a comment at dinner with my mom and brother. "Look, my brother got me a card," and he was upset and made a quiet reply. "You seriously needed me to get you a card?" He says I'm being ungrateful for their earlier efforts. I see it as zero effort. I have also told him point blank, very plainly, that there are 4 days a year that yes, I expect a card. Valentine's Day, anniversary, Mother's Day, and my birthday. We also had this exact fight last year. Am I really being unreasonable and ungrateful? Am I the jerk? You're ungrateful for what? Getting flowers 2 days before Mother's Day? No simple acknowledgement to wish you a happy Mother's Day? Not getting you a card when you previously told him you expected one? Then his passive-aggressive questions? "You seriously need me to?" Nope, not the jerk, your husband is. Not the jerk. Put exactly the same amount of effort and thought into Father's Day. Hand him a dandelion on Friday before, because nothing else says thinking of you like a single dandelion. Give him something to eat that isn't perfect for his health or his lifestyle. Mention that he needs to watch what he eats because it's part of his responsibility as a partner to take care of himself and not disrespect you by letting himself go physically. And then the day of, feel free to ignore the whole thing completely. People like this get mad because they put zero effort in and then get upset when they're lazy. Zero effort day gets called out. Neighbors' kids are demanding to use our pool. Should we just let them? I, 37 male, moved into a small neighborhood with my fiance, who's 36. The neighborhood is full of kids around the ages of 9 and 10. We found out that my fiance is expecting, and we both decided on wanting a pool. I had an above-ground pool put in last year, and the neighborhood kids were very happy. I told them no dogs were allowed in the pool, as the lining was fragile and it could break. This year, I opened the pool, and the kids used it while we were away. When we got back, I noticed the water level was low, and I tried to refill it. I saw a good-sized tear on the side and got it fixed. The kids came over the next day with a Labrador Retriever wanting to use the pool, and I told them that the pool was closed. I came home and saw a few of the neighbors arguing with my fiance. I walked over and everyone starts talking about how I hurt their kids' feelings by not allowing them to use the pool. I explained what happened and why I had to close the pool. A few of them started laughing and demand that I reopen the pool. My fiance thinks that I should open the pool and apologize to the families. Not the jerk. Who are the neighbors to demand that you open the pool? And I surely hope you strictly enforce the no dog rule. I'm also assuming you require at least one adult to be present at the pool at all times. Finally preparing to take my entitled mother-in-law to court, it's time for some serious payback. My partner, 30 male, and I, 25 female, started our relationship 5 years ago. When we met, I found out he shared a mortgage with mother-in-law because when her ex left, she couldn't hold the mortgage. Boyfriend had a good job and decided to step up. We hadn't met yet and he was single and living there, so he didn't think much of it, and that was his mom, and he's a wonderful son and person. I moved in with him after 7 months. I know that's pretty soon, but there were some unforeseen events that led me to just stay, and that's when I started to realize there was something really off about mother-in-law. To give a visual of the house, it's a 2-story house with 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms upstairs, and 1 bedroom and bathroom downstairs. When I moved in, we lived in his bedroom upstairs. All downstairs was absolutely filled to the ceiling with junk and boxes, almost like an episode of Hoarders. Completely unlivable. There's also a laundry room down there, and that's where we all did our laundry. We were finally able to convince mother-in-law to get her crap out of the way so we could move downstairs and have a bit more privacy. There's a door leading into the living area of the downstairs, and she would use that to get to the laundry. We spent most of our time in the living area and got tired of her constantly coming through it, so I tried to talk and make a compromise. There were 2 other ways to get to the laundry room. One way is down the outside stairs and the laundry room door, and the other is through the garage and through the hall. I went and bought some curtains to set up on either side of the doors so she had her own special hallway. She kept coming through after agreeing to use the other ways. One day, we replaced the doorknob with a knob with a lock that locked from the inside. We had locked up and left the house for a few hours. When we got back, we found she had taken a butter knife and forced open the lock, something that could have easily been avoided. When we confronted her, she got on the floor and cried, and my boyfriend went over to comfort her. That's when I realized that she manipulates him. I only asked why she did that, and she broke down with crocodile tears. Eventually, I convinced boyfriend to get away, and we moved into an apartment in town. It was bliss. I think from there, he started to gain a lot more confidence and stopped talking to mother-in-law as much. This was all 4 years ago. After we moved out, mother-in-law decided to spend a bunch of money and renovate the downstairs and make the house into a duplex-type situation, with her living in the bottom. It's separate now, and she's invading no one's space. She charges a tenant $2,200 to live upstairs, which pays her almost paid-off mortgage and all of her bills. Boyfriend is still on the title and mortgage of the house. When he was there, he was paying everything, including her phone bill. Another thing to add, mother-in-law does not work. So fast forward to now. I'm 2 months pregnant with boyfriend's baby. We're starting a family, and boyfriend has asked to move into the upstairs so we can have a bigger home to raise our baby in. She said no. We asked her to take his name off. Nope. She refuses to let him live in the house. She won't buy him out. She won't take his name off because that would mean she can't keep the house. She cannot keep the house without boyfriend. Her reasoning is that she wants to save for her retirement and she needs the $4,000+ a month she makes from the tenant, alimony, she wasn't even married to the guy, disability from the government, and other under-the-table work, while we are currently grasping at straws. My boyfriend has finally realized that his mother doesn't give any hoots about him or his kid, and now we are going to take her to court. The house is worth almost $700,000. We're going to force a sale for half. Basically, she's proved time and time again that she's a selfish, greedy woman who takes advantage of her son. Her other son does not talk to her or see her, even on holidays. We understand why now. I'm honestly just still in shock at the fact that after everything he's done for her, she won't do the same. Also, she has a lot of money. Edit. I don't in any way think I'm entitled to any of this money. I just say we out of habit because we are just a team with things, I guess. Court wasn't my idea. I try to leave any of that stuff up to him because it isn't my house. I'm just in here to share this story. Don't let her handle the sale. She'll sell it low out of spite or make a deal for money under the table. Karen doesn't believe in disciplining her kids, so I let them destroy the house. My brother, Casey, who's 32, is much older than me. I'm 17. He's married to my sister-in-law, Mandy, who's 36, and they have 2 kids. My nephew, Nick, who's 3.5, and my niece, Maya, who's 2. Mandy recently asked my parents if I could babysit Nick and Maya, since Mandy wanted to visit her mom and the original babysitter canceled last minute. I had never babysat Nick or Maya before. I honestly don't have any real experience in babysitting kids under 5, but my parents begged and offered to pay me, so I agreed. Babysitting Nick and Maya was a nightmare. They acted like they had never been told no or been forced to behave in their entire lives. Drawing on the walls with crayons and markers, trying to flush bath toys down the toilet, throwing themselves on the floor and screaming for candy, the list goes on and on. I called Mandy explaining what Nick and Maya were doing and that I was having them stand in the corner for a timeout. Mandy ended up coming home early, but not to deal with Nick or Maya. Instead, Mandy was angry with me and told me that I wasn't allowed to discipline them because I'm not their mother and I need to learn my place. The next weekend, last Friday, Mandy begged me to babysit Nick and Maya because she said that she wanted to visit her mom again and couldn't find another babysitter. My parents had me agree, and Mandy told me again that I was not allowed to discipline them. I'm pretty sure this is the real reason why she couldn't get an actual babysitter for them. Since Mandy said I couldn't discipline them, I decided to do as I was told. I watched them to make sure they didn't try and run away from home or anything, but otherwise, I left them to their own devices. The house was obviously a wreck by the time Mandy got home. Mandy was furious with me and tried convincing my parents to not pay me. My parents still paid me since a deal is a deal, but they said they were disappointed with me because even though Mandy's no discipline rule is silly, I had a dozen better ways of keeping my niece and nephew occupied, using an activity like crafts or hide and seek instead of being spiteful and immature and just letting them destroy the house. Casey hasn't said anything about it, but he is kind of an absentee father, to be honest. He spends most of his time at work. When he is home, he kind of just acts like the fun uncle while Mandy does the actual parenting. I'm looking for unbiased perspectives on here. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. I find this to be hilarious. I'm a school teacher, and believe me, I can spot the kids who aren't told no and lack discipline on day one. It's not cute. It sounds like Mandy needs parenting classes. Not the jerk. The kids are awful because of poor parenting on both parents' parts, and if you're not allowed to correct them, then so be it. Do not babysit for them anymore. If your parents want you to do it so badly, let them do it. Would I be the jerk for not attending my brother's birthday party because I can't bring my dog? I, 28 female, have a 3-year-old German Shepherd, Lou, who's the sweetest dog I've ever met. She's very cuddly and loving once she gets used to you. However, she was mistreated as a puppy and has separation anxiety. Edit. We've been working with a professional trainer and she's been making improvements. But currently, leaving her home alone for more than an hour simply isn't possible. Edit. My brother lives 45 minutes away. It's hard to gain her trust, so getting someone to watch her on short notice is nearly impossible. The last time I visited my brother, who's 39, his wife, who's 42, stepped on Lou's tail and quite obviously it hurt. She didn't bite or even try to do so, but she barked quite loudly before running to hide behind me. I asked my sister-in-law whether she was all right, and she said she was, so I didn't think anything else of it. After all, she had known Lou for almost 2 years before the incident. But when my brother invited me to his birthday party next weekend, he told me to leave Lou at home, and when I asked for the reason, he told me sister-in-law thought she was too aggressive to be around the guests. She isn't, but it's their house, their rules, and I want to respect their wishes. So I simply called my usual dog sitter, who told me that unfortunately they weren't available. Anyone else who has watched Lou in the past will also be at my brother's party, so I don't have anyone to watch her. I told my brother I could either A, bring Lou and keep her on a leash at all times, or B, take Lou with me and take turns with my mom walking her around the neighborhood so I could be able to stay a bit without his wife having to face my dog, or C, come over with Lou in the car to congratulate him and bring over his present, but leave shortly afterwards, as I don't want her to be alone in the car for more than 15 minutes. He told me that he didn't like any of these options because his wife didn't want my aggressive dog on their property, in their driveway, or in their neighborhood in general. I apologized and told him that if that was the case, I wouldn't be able to come at all. He's told me that he's disappointed, but especially my sister-in-law has been bombarding me with texts about how I was selfish for putting my dog before my brother, and that I was a jerk of a sister to do that to him on his 40th birthday. I think I've proposed reasonable enough compromises. Edit. And because all of them were declined, I don't see what other options I have left except for staying home. But in the end, I'd still like to hear the opinions of unbiased internet strangers to be sure. No jerks here. If they don't like any of the options you gave them, they shouldn't expect you to attend. Not wanting the dog in their neighborhood is a bit over the top. I know you love your dog, but if you can't leave it alone for over an hour, that's a big problem. You're making your life revolve around your dog. Pets should add to your life, not take things and people away from it. Please get help from a trainer to help your dog overcome its separation anxiety. Not the jerk. You were invited to the party. You can politely decline to go. I've not been on vacation for 4 years because I have a large house dog. She doesn't do well in hot weather. She has separation anxiety if I'm gone longer than 10 hours. She's okay with my in-laws, but starts to hunt for us after a few hours, so we simply don't go if we can't take her. Dogs are a commitment that you sign up for. No jerks here. Your dog is preventing you from attending some social event. If that's how you want your life to be, then it's only up to you. Sucks for your friends and family, but that's your decision. You cannot be forced to leave your pet behind, but you cannot force people to be around him. Am I the jerk for letting my daughter keep her sketchbook at my house after her mom looked through it without permission? So, to start, I have 50-50 custody of my daughter, Claire, who's 12, with my ex-wife, Jessica. Jessica is married to Chris, who's 40, who has 2 kids, Addie, who's 7, and Luke, who's 10. Claire spends 1 week at my place, 1 week with her mom. Sunday is the swap day. 2 weeks ago, Claire had a huge fight with her step-siblings. Apparently, they snuck into her room when she was away and went through her stuff, breaking some of her important items in the process, and Claire screamed at them when she found out. Jessica and Chris wrote off Addie and Luke's behavior as kids will be kids. I disagree. I think that Addie and Luke need a reality check for their behavior and that they shouldn't get away with it. However, they said that Claire's reaction was over the top and a sign that there's something wrong with her. Jessica decided that she needed to find out what's in Claire's head, and so she confiscated Claire's sketchbook, which Claire uses to get her feelings out, and went through it. Apparently, what she found was disturbing. Claire has showed me her sketchbook before, and no it isn't, and took Claire to a psychologist for evaluation. Spoiler alert, they didn't even find anything. My daughter is completely mentally healthy, save for, surprise surprise, stress from her step-siblings. Anyway, I got Claire last Sunday, and she spent her first few hours with me holed up in her room, sketching I think. At dinner, she told me what happened, and I surprised her with pancake breakfast the next morning to make her feel better. Before I gave her back to Jessica, Claire asked me to keep her sketchbook at my house so her mom wouldn't look through it. I said yes, and she went over to her mom's place without it. Yesterday, I got a text from Jessica. She said that she was worried that Claire forgot her sketchbook because when she went to confiscate it, it wasn't where Claire usually keeps it. She then asked me to arrange a time and place for her to pick it up. I said that the sketchbook was with me and that I decided to keep it because I didn't want it confiscated again. I didn't want to throw Claire under the bus here. In hindsight, lying probably wasn't the best idea. She said that I was being a jerk because she has a right to her daughter's mind. I said that I was worried because of how she handled it last time she went through it. She restated her previous point and I did not respond. It's been about a day since that conversation and I'm starting to question my choice. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. And your ex has lost her marbles. OP, document everything. Their response to your daughter's very normal behavior and sibling stress is disturbing and suggests that she's being scapegoated over there, especially as they're excusing their other kids' behavior as normal, which means that they're excusing other behaviors too. Where will it end? I would encourage you to consult a lawyer and petition for full custody. You don't want to let this crap continue. Making your daughter out to be the villain in all of this, and this right to her mind nonsense, is screaming mental health issues with your ex. I grew up in a house like this, and I wish someone had been able to help me get out of it. Your daughter needs you to step up for her now. Be the parent that she needs. Not the jerk. This is the equivalent of reading her diary. It's a boundary that should not be crossed in the absence of absolutely dire circumstances, which you stated do not seem to be present. Keep being your kid's advocate. They need an adult they can trust to confide in them and keep them safe. You obviously have your daughter's trust. Do what you need to keep it. Am I the jerk for prioritizing my wife over my own mom on Mother's Day? I, 38 male, have been married to my wife, 36 female, for 12 years. We have 2 daughters who are 10 and 3. We both come from divorced families, and all of our parents have since remarried, though my mom's second husband passed a couple of years ago. My wife's parents are no longer local, but my mom and dad both live in the same metro area as us. I have a very good relationship with my dad and stepmom, and they are our sole support for helping out with the girls. My mom and I have an up and down relationship as a result of a lot of things over a lot of years. Nothing excessive, annoying stepdad, brother who's an addict, grandparenthood not meeting her expectations. My mom is also not an easy person to please. After years of running around and trying to accommodate everyone, lately I don't always put in the effort I should with her because often the effort isn't appreciated anyway. So for Mother's Day this year, I wanted to give my wife the day. But I didn't want to pressure her with coming up with a rigid plan. I asked her on Friday if she wanted brunch or dinner made and to let me know what she wanted to do with her day when she knew. I mentioned I would take the girls to see all of their grandparents in the middle of the day so she could have the house to herself if she wanted the peace, or we could go do something as a family. Again, no pressure. Just let me know as we go and I'll make it happen. She tells me Saturday brunch sounds good. So Sunday morning, the girls and I run to the store for supplies, make brunch, set out the gifts, we eat and play for a bit, and the wife mentions I could take the girls. I call up stepmom and I wish her a happy Mother's Day and ask if she's around. She is, so the girls and I stop by for a visit. Then I call my mom, and I can tell by how she answers the phone that she's annoyed. I wish her a happy Mother's Day and ask if she's available for a visit. She's at her sister's for brunch and won't be home until later when the 10-year-old has activities. Fast forward to Monday, and I get a text from my wife that my mom had sent a screenshot of my wife's post on social sharing about her day and told her she had a terrible day and didn't feel the love from anyone. So Reddit, am I the jerk for prioritizing my wife having a full day over doing something for my own mom? Not the jerk. Your mother just seems to be upset she isn't the center of attention. Not the jerk. You rang up your mom and asked if she was free to see you and the kids. Additionally, your wife and kid are your family. All mothers should be celebrated, new and old. You did that. Not the jerk. Your mother sounds like an insufferable drama queen. Not the jerk. You did offer to visit. She was unavailable. She shouldn't complain about that, especially not to your wife. Everyone sucks here. You asked if she could hang out. She said no. There's nothing inherently wrong about that. However, if I'm reading this right, you didn't give her much notice. You called her Sunday, the day of. Mom was busy. What, was she supposed to sit on her hands, staring at her phone, waiting for you to call? I mean, I would have appreciated a heads up. You couldn't have called or texted mom that Saturday? Hey, wife might want some time to relax Sunday afternoon. Do you have plans then? Can we come by? What time works for you? I'll let you know what's going on. However, mom does sound difficult, and you sound like you've been trying to make her happy for a long time. Mom didn't need to send text to your wife, as if it's her fault that mom didn't get a visit on Mother's Day. She's disappointed with you. She should be talking to you, not your wife. Either establish a relationship with mom that works for you both, or tell her to back off or go low contact. But whatever you do, get that "it's wife's fault" narrative out of her head. Am I the jerk for not giving up my seat for an elderly woman on the tram? I, 26 female, am currently 5.5 months pregnant. Even though I'm in my second trimester, I don't look very pregnant. Additionally, I wear baggy clothes, so it would be tough to see my baby bump either way. In terms of fitness and health, I'm really active, but recently I've been struggling with fatigue from the pregnancy. After a full day of work, I'm a uni lecturer, on my feet, I'm exhausted. Today I was on the tram headed home from work, and most of the seats were taken. I decided to sit in the seats reserved for those who need it, disabled, elderly, pregnant, or those with kids. I usually don't do this unless I absolutely have to, like today. I was minding my business while listening to my podcast when this older lady, I'd guess late 60s or early 70s, tapped me on the shoulder. I removed my headphones and asked how I could help her. She said to me that it's rude of me to sit in these seats and asked if I could stand instead. The way in which she said this was pretty rude. I'm a shy person and I hate conflict, so I was a bit taken aback by her attitude. As I began to try to explain to her how I'm pregnant, another passenger came over and repeated the sentiment of the older lady. Once they stopped talking, I managed to quickly say, "Actually, I'm pregnant," to which the older lady scoffed. She said I couldn't possibly be pregnant and told me to give her the seat. I refused to move and explained to her that I needed the seat as much as she did. At this statement, she lost it. By this point, we had reached the next stop, and the tram conductor came to see what the yelling was about. The older lady told him what was happening, and he looked at me and said, "Are you really pregnant?" To which I obviously said yes. He then said to the lady that there was a free seat near the front that she could have, which she begrudgingly agreed to take. The other passenger then said to me that even if I am pregnant, I should have given up my seat to an elderly person as they actually need it more. After this, I actually felt pretty guilty. Maybe she did actually want it more than me, but how can you tell? So, am I the jerk for not giving up my seat to an elderly woman on the tram? Edit. Today I told my coworker about the situation and he made me feel awful about it. After reading everything here, I feel confident standing by my decision. Pun intended. Thanks everyone. Not the jerk. The seats are there for the elderly, disabled, and pregnant for a reason. Pregnancy causes the human body to exist at the limits of like high-endurance athletes for months at a time. That comes with aches, pains, instability, fatigue, etc. There's also the safety concern. Many pregnant people have low blood pressure, making them dizzier and more prone to falling. You're also off balance because your weight distribution isn't what you're used to. and falling while pregnant can be anything from minorly sore to very, very serious depending on how you land, your luck, etc. Sorry, but I'm not risking my babies for etiquette. You did nothing wrong, and I'm sorry they made you feel like you did. Am I the jerk for not letting my sister-in-law and her friends stay with me? I have 5 brothers and 4 sisters-in-law. I get along with 3 of them wonderfully, and the 4th one just okay. No beef or anything, until now. She just isn't as social as the rest of us and keeps to herself a lot. We have a family group chat with us siblings and spouses that she doesn't participate in much, but I know she reads everything. Also, I live in a touristy area, and that is getting ready to amp up for the year. I posted in the group chat that my in-laws were taking my daughter to another state to visit family, and how excited I was for her to go, but also how excited I was for the alone time. I took my daughter to meet my in-laws and stopped for food on my way home with the plan to open all my patio doors, enjoy the breeze and sounds, and watch TV all night. I get home and drop the food on the counter, go into my bedroom and put my PJs on. I hear someone banging on my patio doors, and I walk out of the bedroom, and it's my sister-in-law 4 with 3 other women that I don't know. They have suitcases and are all trying to open my door. I go to one door and open it slightly and ask, "What's up?" And my sister-in-law says that when she saw I was going to be kid-free for a few days, she decided to plan a girls' trip and come keep me company. I say, without asking if I wanted company, because I don't. One of her friends says, "You didn't make sure this was okay?" Sister-in-law says, "We are family. I don't need to check." To which I reply, "Oh no, you absolutely should have checked because I would have told you no." Sister-in-law says, "Well, we are here now, so let us in." I say, "No, that's okay. I'm not up for company, especially 4 of you." Sister-in-law says, "But you have 3 guest rooms." I reply, "No, 1 is daughter's room, 1 is my office, and 1 is a guest room for invited guests, which you are not. Please go away." Then I closed the curtains that I had put up, mainly for decoration, and wasn't even sure if they would cover all of the windows. She knocked on my patio doors for about 15 minutes before they left. I blocked her on everything so I could enjoy the night. My brother called and asked me what happened, and I told him. He said that his wife had told him that I invited her. After me asking him if he really thought I was the kind of person who would invite 4 people to stay with me when I don't know 3 of them, he just said he would take care of it. She's now very mad at me and is telling anyone who will listen that I embarrassed her in front of her friends and she's never going to forgive me. Pretty sure I don't care though. I just wanted to enjoy my extended weekend alone. So, am I the jerk for not letting uninvited guests ruin my extended alone weekend? Not the jerk. Who invites themselves and their friends to someone else's house without asking for permission from the homeowner? She was way out of line and she embarrassed herself. Not the jerk. What kind of thought process is this? Sees a post about excited for alone time and then proceeds to invite herself and 3 people you don't even know to your house to keep you company? Oh no. Am I the jerk for contacting my husband's job without his permission? For background, my husband Kyle and I have been married for 3 years and I'm 5 months pregnant with our first kid. He and I are 30 and 29 respectively. Following a head injury he received from a car accident last year, Kyle has had epilepsy. He probably has a seizure once every 3 months, even with medication. Yesterday, after I got home from work, I heard Kyle fall in the bathroom, and when I went to check on him, he was seizing. Kyle was working from home when this happened, and his work team had a big project deadline coming up, so he had also been swamped with work. Kyle was feeling super woozy and out of it after the seizure. We decided that he needed to take it easy for the rest of the day. At one point, he asked me to get his glasses from his office, which I did. While getting his glasses, I noticed that he had 50 new messages from various supervisors and coworkers. I didn't read any of them, but when I noticed how many messages there were, I messaged my cousin, one of his bosses, privately and said that while he is fine now, Kyle just had a seizure and he's probably not going to be available for the rest of the day. My cousin was understanding and said not to worry about it. When I told Kyle that I messaged my cousin, he was upset with me because he didn't think it was okay for me to message them without telling him first. He yelled at me for crossing a boundary, something he later apologized for. His thinking is that it wasn't my place to message his supervisor because he never told me that it was something I could do for him. My thinking was that I didn't want his coworkers to think that he just went MIA for no reason, or that something was seriously wrong with him, but I can see how this might have been overbearing. I apologized to Kyle already for the sake of making peace, and I won't reach out to anyone on his behalf again. I honestly just want to know if I was in the wrong here, because I didn't have any bad intentions and I feel like he overreacted. Am I the jerk? Edit. My husband's supervisors were already aware of his epilepsy. I didn't tell my cousin anything he didn't already know, for what it's worth. No jerks here. You did cross a line contacting his job, even if his boss is your cousin. However, it was out of love and caring. He got upset and yelled at you. You both apologized for your actions. I hope your husband is doing better. Agreed. Contacting a spouse or partner's job for them is pretty much only acceptable when the person is literally physically incapable of doing so themselves. And this was almost that, but not quite. I see a lot of people saying the cousin angle muddies the waters, but not really. In this context, he was still OP's husband's boss first and foremost, saying, "Hey, do you want me to let cousin know?" Or, "I noticed you've been getting a lot of work messages. Do you want me to send any kind of notice? Just let me know what you want me to say and I'll type it for you." Or anything like that would have been much better. But it's understandable, and given the context, I don't think this impacted his reputation at work or anything like that. But it sounds like it was a very stressful situation all around. Husband yelled when he shouldn't have and apologized. OP now has a better idea of what she should and shouldn't do if this ever happens again. Am I the jerk for telling my half-sister I'm not responsible for helping her with her mother's care? My half-sister's mother is my dad's widow. They were married until his passing a decade ago. But I was never close to her and had no contact with her in the years since my dad's passing, and only had minimal contact with her in the years before he passed after I left their house. Some of the big points of contention were money. Most of the money my parents had, in theory, was my mom's before marriage and was considered a premarital asset, which she left entirely to me, and a bank account that only her parents had access to until I turned 18. The money from the actual marriage was entirely my dad's, and he got the house and stuff, which was in her name. But the money I had was a large sum, and there were times we struggled and I didn't want it to be used. There was also the fact I did not want to use that money to help cover the cost when my dad's wife had breast cancer to help pay for treatment so they'd have no debt. Another thing was, she hated that I called her by her first name, never mom, never mama, or some form of mom nickname. This was part of what made my dad and I so estranged as well. He was fully on board with me giving her a mom nickname. There was a lot of crap too when my half-sister was born and I had more extended family because my mom came from a close family and my dad did not, and neither did his wife. I was low contact for about 5 years before my dad passed, no contact with his wife after. My half-sister and I have always had a strained enough relationship. She didn't like my lack of attachment to her mom and was on team, give my mom a mom nickname because she's your mom now too. So she was telling me recently that her mom is sick and needs care and it's expensive. She felt we should split the cost, and I owed her mom that much and I owed her as a sister. I told her I won't be splitting the cost and I'm not responsible for helping her with her mother's care, that she is her mother's kid, her only kid, and that means it's on her. She told me I was so cold to the woman who was my mother for 10 years of my childhood. She also told me I could do it for her as her sister, as a sister who is never the best sister and could make up for that now. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Keep your money. If your dad got the marital home after your mom passed, I presume it went to your stepmom after your dad passed. She can sell it if she needs to pay for medical bills. Not the jerk. You were deservedly cold to this person who stole the money your late mother left for you that should have been invested in your future. You don't owe them anything. Their BS has cost you enough. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay half of my partner's termination fee? I, 25 female, own my house. Not outright, I have a mortgage. My partner, male 27, has been renting his current property for nearly 2 years with a 2-year fixed tenancy agreement. We've been together for 3 years. He's recently been making little comments about having money issues. Nothing direct, but I felt he was definitely hinting at moving in. For example, he said that though he isn't struggling to pay the rent or the rest of his bills, he is unable to indulge in his hobbies. As we've been together a while, and it felt like the natural next step, and felt like that's what he was hinting at, I suggested he move in with me. We agreed that as he isn't gaining any equity in my house, he won't contribute to the mortgage, but he will split all utilities with me equally. We will be saving quite a lot of money monthly. Now, the letting agency has told him that he has to pay an early termination fee as he will be leaving his tenancy 3 months early. The fee is around £600. He asked me to pay half of it today and blew up at me when I said no. My reasoning was, he will be saving money in the long run by moving in with me anyway. I'm covering the cost of my property, so he should be covering the cost of his. I don't see this as a joint bill. He thinks I'm the jerk because I asked him to move in, so I'm the reason he's leaving his tenancy early anyway, so I should be responsible for half of it. When I told him he could stay there and move in with me when his tenancy ends, and therefore he would not be required to pay the fee, he got even angrier and said I was showing my true colors and didn't actually want him to move in with me or have an equal partnership. Unsure if it's important, but for clarification, he has enough in his savings to cover the whole fee. I have about double what he has in savings. He's aware of this as I've loaned him money from my savings before. I don't think I'm the jerk if I'm being honest, but he certainly does, so I thought I'd get some other opinions. Not the jerk. And if you have any sense, you'll cancel your offer and not let him move in. He's already feeling entitled to your money. He'll be living rent-free at your expense. He's only offered half utilities, which is not enough. And he also wanted to move in, yet he's somehow spinning this as some huge favor he's doing you? Forget him. His meanness over this $300 just cost him a rent-free home. And as you say, this is his bill, not yours. Neighbor uses his leaf blower every morning at 7 a.m. How can I stop him? I've lived in this house for about 2 years now, and on my first day here, I had a weird interaction with my neighbor. He saw me walking down the street and asked, "Can I help you? Are you lost?" Literally the house right next to mine. I've tried to have friendly conversations, but the guy comes off as a major jerk. I was unemployed for a few months and asked him to jump my car. Every other sentence included the word job. Very obvious he wanted to know more about my life. Every time a car pulls up in my driveway, whether it be my mom or a friend, his whole family will be standing in the front door watching what's going on. One time I was in my backyard and they sent their daughter, who's probably about 6 to 8, to walk along the inside of my fence, and it was very obvious she was there to look at what I was doing and was probably told by her parents to do so. She just walked around the fence and went back inside. Didn't seem like she was looking for anything but me. Some weird nosy stuff. He also called the police twice on me in 2 weeks because my car was parked in the street. Didn't even say a word to me. But this still isn't the worst to me. The worst is the fact that he uses his leaf blower every morning around 7 to 8 a.m. He starts his leaf blower right outside my bedroom window and he leaf blows his cars and his driveway. Usually for at least 30 minutes to 1 hour, and daily, if not multiple times a day. He leaf blew 5 different times yesterday. He will wait for it to stop raining and leaf blow the rain off of his cars and driveway. He sealed his driveway and spent over an hour trying to dry it with his leaf blower, all of 10 to 20 feet from my bedroom window, 8 a.m. on a Sunday. So, any ideas to tick him off? This leaf-blowing, nosy maniac is driving me crazy. I need him to get a taste of his own medicine. Been thinking about opening my bedroom window and playing loud music at night before noise ordinance since it faces his house. Just tired of this leaf blower man. Edit. Anyone know of a good quiet leaf blower? Some nice quality but quiet. Neighbor will be thrilled about his new leaf blower and it will hopefully be a bit more quiet around here. A win for both of us. A better way to go about it. I just despise the sound of that awful constant leaf blower. Plant fruiting mulberry trees along the fence bordering his yard and driveway. Birds love the fruit, a little kind of bland blackberry. They make good jam, and they'll go to the bathroom purple everywhere. Cars and concrete included. They start fruiting pretty young too. Am I the jerk for embarrassing my stepdad in front of his family, saying he's in my house? For the past few months, I, 17, male, haven't had a good relationship with my mom or my stepdad. I'm angry at them because 2 years ago when my dad passed, he left me inheritance that I'm supposed to get on my 18th birthday. I'm also getting survivor's benefits that my mom uses for me when I need things, so it's not like she used this inheritance for me. They bought a house that we moved into. It was weird for me because we always lived in a 3-bedroom apartment. My stepdad is a substitute teacher and my mom's a part-time receptionist. They never even had enough to go for a vacation or something. But all of a sudden, they had enough for a large house out of nowhere. My mom looked guilty about it until she finally admitted they used some of what my dad left me to buy the house. I lost it. They tried to justify that it was for me too, and I asked them, does that mean they're moving out when I'm 18 and the house will be in my name? And they're like, no. That's what I thought. Supposedly the house was for me, but the max time that I would have lived there was for a few months. There's still some money left if I went to a cheap college, but still can't believe they used my money for something for themselves. That amount could have helped me get my own darn house. Also, think it's funny since my stepdad didn't like my dad because since I was spending more time with him, that meant my mom had to pay a little in child support. But he doesn't care using the money he left for me. Sorry if this is a bit of a rant, but where I'm asking if I was the jerk is last Sunday, his family all came to stay at the house. They stayed Friday night, so it was the next morning when I'm getting ready to go to work. I made myself eggs in a hurry. Before I left, my stepdad asked how come there wasn't more for his family, and I told him it's because I'm already leaving for work. There wasn't going to be time to make something for everyone. He acted like it's not a big deal if I'm a little late, since it's rare they have people over at the house. We go back and forth because I'm not going to stop to make breakfast when he can do it himself. Then he pulled that, "Don't talk to me like that in my house." By the way, there's no door in the kitchen, and that leads right into the living room so they could hear all of this. I said loudly, "Actually, it's my house since you paid for it with my money, and don't forget you stole it from me." My mom is expecting me to apologize for embarrassing him in front of his whole family because after I left, they all had something to say about it. They already went home by the time I got home, but you could feel the tension. He straight up ignored me. That's how bad it was. I don't feel like there's anything for me to apologize for, so that's where she thinks I'm not being a good son and kind of a jerk. I want to know if others feel the same. Not the jerk. I think you should talk to an estate lawyer, because if your dad structured his will properly, I would say your mother has misused funds put in trust for you for her own personal benefit. Don't pick a fight with your mom and stepdad over this until you have the facts. But I really do think you should have a professional review the situation and let you know what your options are. Karen loses it over me sending my sister money. My younger sister, who's 25, is working towards getting her master's degree in New York. While she loves the city and school, she hates how expensive everything has become. She does work part-time, but it simply isn't enough. My parents, who are 77 and 73, have been sending her money each month, but since they've recently retired, they had to cut back. To fill the gap, my brother, male 28, and I, male 32, have begun sending some money to our sister from time to time to help out with her rent. I have a well-paying job and a close relationship with my sister, so I'm happy to help where I can. However, my girlfriend, who's 30, has expressed her dissatisfaction with the arrangement. We've been saving up to put a down payment on a house in the future, and my girlfriend believes that my financial contributions to my sister is hindering our progress. Yesterday, which happened to be the day I usually send my sister money, my girlfriend told me that we needed to reduce expenses, and one suggestion she made was for me to no longer send money to my sister. She believes that my sister needs to learn how to manage her money better, and that my brother, who's 28, should contribute more. I told her about how I feel a responsibility towards my sister and how my brother doesn't make as much as I do. And while she did acknowledge that, she then said I was financially naive and said she doesn't want me to be taken advantage of. I was kind of disappointed hearing this, as I made the conscientious decision to help my sister and I wasn't falling for some sort of a scam. The conversation ended because we both had to go to work, but she told me not to send anything until we further discussed this. During my lunch break at work, I proceeded to send my sister some money and told girlfriend about this over dinner. She told me that she was disappointed. At this point, I was getting a little annoyed and responded by saying I was not willing to compromise my current arrangement with my sister. Girlfriend got upset with this and left the table. Am I the jerk? Edit. I make about $15.5 thousand per month and have been putting away $4,000 to $6,000 each month towards a future house. Girlfriend makes about $7,000 a month currently and saves around $1,000 a month for the house. She said she'll contribute more once her student loans are paid off. I pay for rent and utilities. Girlfriend pays for bulk of the groceries. I started sending my sister $1,500 a month since my parents retired. Edit 2. Sister pays $2,800 a month in rent and $350 a month in transportation. I contribute $1,500 a month. Brother pays $750 a month. Parents pay $500 a month. Our mother was terrified of sister living in New York City on her own and only agreed if she lived in a nicer area and had a car. Edit 3. Update. My girlfriend and I had a long talk after work. It didn't go well. To summarize, tensions escalated during the conversation. I told her that I plan to continue helping my sister until she completes her degree, and afterward, she would either start working or move back to our parents' home until she finds a job. However, my girlfriend expressed her belief that my sister and whole family are manipulating me and think I'm naive enough to send her money regardless of how she uses it. I started to feel increasingly annoyed and defensive by her accusations and asserted that it's my money and I have the right to spend it how I see fit. I then, stupidly, said that if she really wanted us to buy a house, she should save more and cut back on expenses like nice shoes, clothes, and purses. At this point, she became properly angry and declared that she couldn't stay in the same house as me and said that she would be going to her friend's house. Before leaving, she said, "Call me when you stop acting like an idiot." Before I could even think, I replied, "I won't be calling." I feel that I may have irreparably damaged our relationship. Edit 4. Update. I want to express my thanks to all of you for sharing your perspectives and insights. Following the fight with my girlfriend, I reached out to my brother to confide in him about what happened. His take was pretty optimistic. However, he advised me to stand firm in my position while also remaining open to fully hearing out my girlfriend and considering the possibility of reconciliation. He cautioned against contacting girlfriend's friend to ask about her whereabouts, as it may smell of desperation, and instead said that he would come over, as he lives about an hour away, so we could spend some time together over a movie and dinner. At this point, I feel drained and numb. It's been a long day, and to be honest, I just want it over. Edit 5. My brother came by and brought dinner. We've been watching The Dark Knight. Still haven't heard from girlfriend or her friend. For those wondering, I'm a chemical engineer, and girlfriend has been paying about $2,500 a month to pay off her student loans. Do you and your girlfriend share finances? If not, then you're not the jerk. Otherwise, you are the jerk. Edit. Definitely not the jerk. OP does not share an account with the girlfriend, so he's spending his own money. She does not get to dictate how he spends his money as long as shared expenses are covered. And they are. OP. We don't have a shared bank account. I pay rent and utilities, she pays about 80% of the groceries, while I cover about 20%. Not the jerk. Girlfriend doesn't have to agree. It's your money. Be very careful purchasing a home without very clear agreements on finances. Girlfriend is a partner, not a parent to tell you what to do, then punish you when you don't comply. Not the jerk, but massive red flags getting thrown around your girlfriend, my man. It would be one thing if you were sending so much money that it was affecting your own financial status, or if your sister was lying and taking advantage of you and your brother, or if your girlfriend was also contributing money and no longer wanted to, or if you were sending shared money. But none of those things are an issue, and literally, your sister is just trying to exist in an expensive city, and her extremely loving and generous brothers are choosing to support her because they can and they want to. That's really beautiful. You should really reconsider buying a house and continuing a relationship with someone who prioritizes her own desires so far over yours. She's seriously overstepping and disrespecting you. Unless she's not telling you some hidden fear or worry here that explains her bizarre self-centered stance, what she's trying to force you into is selfish, uncaring, and just icky. Am I the jerk for kicking my son, his girlfriend, and my grandson out of my house? I, 63 female, and my husband, who's 67, ran into an issue with my son last year. During lockdown, his girlfriend got pregnant. He moved her in with his roommates who were not happy. The roommates left, and they re-signed with the landlord just themselves, but his girlfriend couldn't, or wouldn't, find a job, and he lost his job a few months later and they couldn't pay rent. They stayed for 7 months and then got evicted. Now they have an eviction on their record and terrible credit because they lived off of credit cards, so now they have thousands in credit card debt. I didn't want them moving in. My son, who's 38, male, lived at home until he was 31, so we had a lot of trouble getting him to move out. But his girlfriend was giving birth soon, so we took them in. They stayed for almost a year, and the deal was they both get jobs, they help pay utilities and pay off their credit cards and find a place to live. They were only supposed to stay for 6 months, but they wouldn't move out when we asked them at the end of 6 months. They said because of the eviction on their record, no one would rent to them. They also didn't make enough to pay utilities. So my husband and I paid more in utilities, and they ate for free as well, since they would take from the fridge and wouldn't buy any groceries themselves. We offered to help them with baby expenses, diapers, car seats, etc. at first, but it's been almost a year and we're still paying for it. They were doing DoorDash, but not working more than 3 to 4 hours a day. I kept trying to get my son to get a full-time job, but he just got angry and accused me of nagging him. His girlfriend is also very messy and doesn't clean up after herself. I've changed more diapers and fed her son more than she has, and it's infuriating because they chose to have a baby, but they won't take responsibility. My husband and I have been retired for 2 years now, and we had planned to move to Chile, where I'm from. We were supposed to sell the house last year and didn't, just to let them stay here. But now it's been over a year and we are sick of it. We kept telling them that they had to move out, and they just ignored us, so we put our house up for sale. We had wanted to renovate it first, but they wouldn't let us into their bathroom and room, so we decided just to sell as is. We got a fair offer and closed in a week and told them they had 2 months to move. My son yelled at us for kicking them out and not caring about him, and he shattered our decorative vase that we had. They finally moved out, and we're in between places and we'll be going to Chile next month. But my son and his girlfriend currently have nowhere to live. They're staying with a friend now, but they're only letting them stay until the end of the month, and then they will have to figure it out. My son yells at me over the phone and tells me I'm never allowed to see my grandson again for kicking them out. I don't know where I went wrong, that he couldn't be an adult and get a job and move out without being forced to. Not the jerk. He's 38. You were way more patient than you should have been. Not the jerk, but perhaps set up a trust for that kid when he comes of age, because it sounds like he might need it. You are not the jerk. Your son and his girlfriend did this to themselves. 7 months is a long time to go before being evicted. They could have taken steps to get back on their feet, but they didn't. Once they moved in with you, they could have taken steps to pay off their credit cards and get back on their feet. They didn't. It's unfortunate that the kid is caught in the middle of all of this because his parents aren't willing to take responsibility for themselves. But you have earned your retirement, and your son's entitlement is his problem, not yours. Maybe this will be the wake-up call he needs. With no home to return to, and with you in a foreign country, he might finally be forced to stand on his own. If you had let them stay, which was clearly what their plan was all along, you would have been a jerk to yourself. Am I the jerk for marinating chicken overnight? Look, I know the title is vague, but I'm at a loss here. Let's start with some context. I'm renting a room in a 4-bedroom house. Life's difficult right now, and this is the best I can afford. The other 3 rooms are occupied by people I didn't know before moving in, each paying their own rent, including a couple that sleeps in the larger room. Since the house is shared, we have free access to the shared spaces, like the kitchen and lounge, and we try to be respectful of each other. One thing that's relevant is that the couple and a person in another room were already friends before moving in, so they spend a lot of time together and do stuff for each other. All good with me. For the actual reason of this post, I'm out most of the day working, and usually when I cook dinner for myself, I cook a bit extra to take to work the next day and save money. The other day, I had some chicken breast that I cut into bits and seasoned with some lemon, herbs, and left to marinate. Fry that up with some vegetables, add some noodles, and it's a pretty decent meal. On this particular occasion, my coworkers had planned a team lunch for the next day, so there was no point in me cooking that usual extra. Since the marinated chicken was actually smelling pretty good, I thought it would taste even better the following day when I'd cook it for dinner again. Got a bowl, placed it all in there, covered with cling film, and left it in the refrigerator, in the spot where my refrigerator stuff usually is. We do this so everyone knows who owns what in the refrigerator. Never thought about it again. The following day when I get home, a couple of people from the other rooms are kind of waiting for me in the lounge, and they just start screaming at me. So the girl from the couple I mentioned earlier is a sleepwalker, and that has never been a major issue until now, save from the occasional noise during the night, but nothing that should be considered annoying. You might see where this is going though. Last night, she got up, still sleeping, walked in the kitchen, opened the fridge, and helped herself to a spoonful of marinated chicken. She then proceeded to go back to bed, where she eventually fell ill and had to be taken to the hospital. Now they're acting like it's my fault, because since I know she's a sleepwalker, I should be more careful with stuff like this and not leave uncooked chicken in the refrigerator like that. I never thought that would be a problem. As I said before, we have specific areas for each of us, and we try to be mindful of what we leave there. The chicken was properly covered, and it wouldn't be a problem on any other circumstances. I tried to argue this, but now they want me to apologize to her and help to pay for the hospital bill, which to be honest, I don't really feel like I should. Plus, I'm down 1 meal as the rest of the chicken was just thrown out, and I was really looking forward to it. Not the jerk. Wow, that didn't go as I expected. She needs help for her sleepwalking. It's completely normal to marinate raw chicken in the fridge, assuming you're following food safety, and it sounds like you were. It's not normal to eat it while sleepwalking. Not the jerk. She took food that didn't belong to her and got sick. That's her own fault. If her sleepwalking is that bad, then she should have a lock on her door or seek help for it. If, as I suspect, that's a BS excuse, then she messed around and found out. Not the jerk. It's her responsibility to get her medical conditions under control so she can exist safely. If she had turned on all the faucets and flooded the house, would they have blamed the water company? If she got in the car and drove off and ran into a light pole, would they have blamed the car manufacturer? It sucks that she got sick, but it's not your fault. It's perfectly reasonable to store your food in the refrigerator and expect people not to eat raw chicken while they're sleepwalking. Am I the jerk for saying, actually, it's my house? So, backstory. My grandmother passed 2 years ago. A month before she did, we met up for lunch, and she told me, 32 female, that she was giving me my mom's inheritance and enough money to cover any taxes on it. I was a bit confused, and she explained that she heard my sister talking about putting her in a nursing home, and she wanted me to take care of my mom by buying her a house and providing for her. My mom is 59 and has some mental health issues that have gotten worse with age, but well managed with meds. I still pay the taxes and have the house in my name. The issue at hand. I just moved in with my mom after getting a divorce. I took over all the bills and I pay for all of the groceries. I sat my mom down and told her I take one night a week off, where I, by all means, fall off the face of the universe to unwind and get ready for my weekend. I work 2 jobs. I let her know it's Thursday that I like to take off. I leave work around 5:30 p.m. and I'll be home at 6:30 a.m. to get the kids ready. She agreed to this. I also let her know my ex had agreed as well to keep up my night off, so if something happened, to reach out to him first. This excludes if someone gets sick, hurt, or has to go to the hospital. Well, Thursday is coming up, and my mom started asking what my plans are. I told her I don't know yet. She kept pushing, so I asked if she needed me not to go out. She said no, but she wanted to know the place, time, and people that I would be with. My mind blanked, and I said, I'm not 13 years old, Mom. I don't have to tell you any of that. Just let you know I'm safe. She came at me with, it's my house, my rules. I didn't mean to say it hatefully, but it came out wrong. Actually, it's my house if you want to get technical. She got mad at me and truly started to treat me like a kid, yelling and telling me I'm ungrateful for her helping me out. I told her on that day I enjoy my privacy, that even once my ex and I were together, he didn't know where I was and only knew I was safe. She said I'm a jerk, and that's why me and him are not together, that I was disrespectful to their feelings about my safety. Edit. My mom has bipolar. She's perfectly capable to watch the kids for a night. My sisters have been waiting to put her in a nursing home for as long as I can remember because she's not a great housekeeper or good with money, and it would be easier on their lives. My mom also knows all my partners by name and has their phone numbers. She's the one who told me I was poly, so those accusing me of sneaking off, please don't. Last thing, I'm dyslexic and I'm very well coherent. I do apologize. I do my best writing this post, and I did not ever expect my writing style to come up in them. You are technically correct. The best kind of correct. You're also not the jerk. You're 32 years old, very capable of looking after yourself. And while moms are going to mom and worry about you, it's really none of their business where you're going. And since it is your house, there's no problem with you reminding her. Everyone sucks here. Pardon, you leave your kids once a week and just disappear overnight without giving anyone your whereabouts or who you're with? Everyone sucks here. When you have kids and you're handing them off to someone else for a night off, that other person needs to know where you are in case of emergencies. That goes both ways, in order to ensure your kids are supported, but also in order to ensure you can be found in case something happens to you. It's not an unreasonable ask. For making this into an issue, you are the jerk. Your mom is also a jerk for trying to throw authority over you when it's your house, you work 2 jobs, and she's a complete dependent upon you. Am I the jerk for telling my parents I won't be their live-in babysitter or take care of my baby sibling for them? I, 16 female, am an only child, and that position will be expiring in October when my parents have their second kid. They were always supposed to be one and done with me. Something I was aware of was partly due to them finding childcare ridiculously expensive and mom enjoying her job too much to stay home. I think another part of it, they are not very natural parents and are pretty much entirely hands-off. We never do anything as a family, and they're not very involved in my life. They pay for stuff, and that's their contribution to my life. The pregnancy was a big shock for them, and for me. I heard them discussing what they should do, and my mom was repeatedly saying she was not going to stay at home and she was not going to take much maternity leave, that she wants to be back at work ASAP. They complained about how much it will cost to get someone to watch the baby while they work and during the summers and stuff. I heard them mention me, and I was like, oh no. They sat me down a week ago and told me they had these plans for me to watch the baby for 3 to 4 hours after school until they got home from work. It would involve quitting all of my after-school stuff and not hanging out with friends after school either. They also want me to stay home next summer and to consider hanging around to be there for the next few summers. I was like, no way. They told me I'm going to be a big sister now and that as part of the family, I have responsibilities. I told them they had responsibilities as parents, and I'm not a parent. I'm the kid in the house. They told me not for long. I said I could just rush to graduation and leave, so they can't use me as free childcare. I don't think they expected these reactions from me or the thought that I had put into it. After I heard them talk with each other, I found out I could graduate in December by talking to my guidance counselor. I'm almost finished with my junior year now and could finish senior year early with the grades I keep and the work I do. That is definitely the most appealing option to me, and I'll be 17 in a couple of weeks anyway. My parents were really unhappy with me, and they told me I'm going to miss out on so much by doing this. I told them I won't take care of or raise the baby for them, that I have my own life and being stuck with a baby is not part of it. They told me I'm being incredibly selfish and to think about what I'm throwing away. They also said I won't be a very good sister if I refuse to be part of the baby's life. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk, not at all. They want you to be a live-in nanny and raise their baby that they don't want. Tell them that if you wanted a baby at 16, you would have gotten pregnant yourself, and that's still an option. Watch their reaction. Your parents are right. You will miss out on a lot. Changing diapers, tantrums, and running around after a hyperactive toddler. Not the jerk, and you honestly sound way more mature than your parents. Please go as far away as possible from them as soon as you can. Would I be the jerk if I told my family I no longer want my graduation present? I, 17 female, just finished my junior year of high school. For some background, when I was 13, I ended up getting into musicals. I spent hours watching and listening to various shows amongst different casts, including any film adaptations of them. I developed a real passion, which I only ended up having more time for during lockdown. It was a great way to escape into something else when I was feeling lonely and closed off, and it really helped me emotionally through the entire ordeal. Due to this, it's become a bit of a dream of mine to go to Broadway and see a show live. I've seen some live regional theater in my state, but I'm in love with the idea of going to Broadway in person. When my grandmother, who's 62, asked me in my freshman year of high school what I would like for a graduation present, I asked her if it would be too much to ask for a short trip to New York City to see a Broadway show. She told me that if everything had calmed down by then, she would love to take me, saying I definitely deserve something big and that she would love to return to New York. She went once years ago on a business trip. I got incredibly excited at that point and would talk about it on and off with my grandmother as the years went by. However, recently it seems like plans have changed. I was on the phone with my grandmother the other night and the trip came up. She asked me if I had been saving up for my ticket. I asked what she meant because I thought with the trip being a gift that it meant my ticket would be paid for. She told me that the trip is a gift, but I need to pay my way. She said it wouldn't be fair for me to be paid for and my brother and cousins not to be. I asked why my brother and cousins would be coming because the original plan was just me, her, and my mom. She said that she'd invited her other 2 daughters and their kids, and that of course she's told my mom to invite my brother because she wants to take the trip as a family. I managed to get her off the topic and then we finished the phone call. I don't want my entire family to come. It would be too chaotic and impossible to organize any of them. Almost none of my mother's family is capable of being on time to things. I also don't want my little brother going because he's 12 and very loud and disruptive. He can hardly keep still and quiet in a movie theater, much less a Broadway show he wouldn't care anything about. This was also mainly about getting to have a trip with my mother and grandmother only because I live with my father and I see his family more. I really don't want to go on a trip anywhere because I don't want it to be more than my mom and grandma, and I really can't afford to buy my own ticket or hotel room. I don't have time for a job outside of school and extracurriculars, and my dad won't let me get one. Would I be the jerk if I just said I don't want to go anymore? Edit. To clarify, the original number of people meant to be involved was 3, me, mom, and grandma, and she's now attempting to invite an additional 8 people, 2 aunts, their husbands, their combined 3 kids, my brother, and possibly more. Edit 2. Sorry I forgot to clarify. We have to fly. We live over 1,000 miles from the state of New York. That's part of why I don't want so many people going. I know they wouldn't make it to the airport on time and it would cause issues before the trip even starts. Not the jerk. Totally reasonable. Both in your expectation that it wouldn't be your responsibility to pay and that not everyone else in your family would be coming. You'll enjoy Broadway another time in your life. Explain the reasoning in depth to your grandmother. Tell her that because of the circumstances changing quite a bit, it isn't the same thing you asked for or were expecting. And for that reason, you'd prefer not to have that be your graduation gift. Tell her that your extracurriculars don't allow you the time for a job, so even if you still wanted to take the trip, you don't have a way to pay for it. You would not be the jerk. Am I the jerk for letting my roommate's food burn in the oven? One of my, 23 male, biggest pet peeves is people invading on what I'm doing. For example, if I'm in the kitchen doing something and step out for a few moments, I hate it if I come back and someone has cleaned up after me. Unless obviously something was in the way or they needed to use something. But I hate when people don't just mind their own business and leave stuff how it was. I hated when I lived at home and my mom would tidy up my room when I wasn't around. Nothing crazy, but say I left a shirt hanging on my bed frame. I know exactly where that shirt is. Now I'm coming back looking for it and it's in a new spot. I ask my mom, she doesn't remember where she put it, etc. I'm just a big believer in minding my own business. I strongly dislike if I'm making something in the oven and I have a timer set and it goes off and someone takes it out right away and turns the oven off. Usually I want to leave it in a bit longer, or maybe that was just the first step and it needed to be checked on. Even if that was the time for it to be taken out, I would much rather people just mind their own things. So I extend this courtesy to others, and it's very much in my nature to mind my own business. Usually what other people are doing isn't on my radar, and people point out how I'm usually in my own world a lot. My roommate, 22 female, on the other hand, is the complete opposite. She has to be part of everything. If I'm watching something, she asks what I'm watching. If I look at my phone and laugh, she asks me what I'm laughing at, etc. It's not a problem. A lot of my friends are like this, and I don't find it annoying. It can be endearing. She's like this with everyone. But she grew up in a big household, whereas I was an only child, so she has some different tendencies. She can be absent-minded and easily distracted. She'll almost expect people around her to be watching out for her. She'll have water boiling on the stove and wander to another room. Also, she has the annoying, to me, tendency to clean up after me or other people that are in the apartment. She was baking cookies in the oven and I was in the kitchen eating a bowl of cereal. I was also wearing AirPods. She left the kitchen for a while, and eventually I heard the oven going off faintly through the AirPods, but it wasn't my business. Eventually, she came rushing into the room and took the cookies out. They weren't burnt to the point where they smelled, but her chewy cookies were now solid. She told me I should have heard the oven and took them out. I told her if that's what she wanted, she should have told me to listen for the oven, and I would take them out, and that you can't just assume someone will. She said that was rude. You're not the jerk in this particular circumstance, but you sound like a jerk in general. You're the jerk. Come on, man. You heard the alarm. It takes absolutely no effort to say, yo, the thing is doing a thing. I mean, I guess you don't really have to do anything for anyone ever and just mind your business, but that's highly antisocial behavior. But I guess if everyone thinks you're an aloof jerk, you won't have to worry about people being in your business or vice versa. You're the jerk, and I strongly suggest you dedicate your life to earning more money so you can live on your own, angrily. You sound like a selfish brat, and I wish your mom's attempts to help you were more impactful on your life philosophy. Neighbors demand I move my plane. I live in a cottage that I inherited after my grandfather passed 3 years ago. The cottage is one of the oldest homes in the area, and unlike my neighbors, I'm not a member of the HOA. The cottage itself is a waterfront one, in which I have a small grass yard that turns into a beach on the lake. I never had a problem until recently over a seaplane and buoys. Due to having a private pilot's license and being really fortunate, I own a Piper Super Cub on floats. When I'm not flying the plane, it's either docked to my dock or is pulled up onto the beach and strapped down when the weather is bad. A month ago, I decided to make some new additions to my property. These additions were 2 lines of buoys at the edge of my property with signs on each. The buoys extend 15 feet past my dock and are still technically on my property. The signs themselves are ones that I got custom made warning about prop wash. I decided to add the buoys and signs because whenever I take my seaplane out, there are sometimes boaters and kayakers who will stop to watch me leave. Normally this is not an issue if they keep their distance. However, recently they've been getting too close for comfort. With the addition of the buoys, I can keep a 100 by 300 foot safety rectangle. This makes it so that at the bare minimum, I will always have around 100 feet off of each wing of safe space. Additionally, it prevents people from cutting me off when I come to dock or park on the beach. About a week and a half ago, I got a letter from the HOA. The HOA is demanding I move my plane to a local seaplane base, as well as remove my buoys and signs. In response, I wrote them a letter explaining the reasons behind having the buoys and told them I have no intention of changing anything. About 2 days later, I got an angry visitor who was an HOA member. I told her that if she or the HOA comes onto my property again, they will be arrested for trespassing. Before leaving, she used some very colorful words and called me a jerk. Not the jerk. Yet another HOA thinking they can flex on their neighbors. Forget them. Totally not the jerk. But get cameras and a lawyer on retainer. You're likely in for an annoying ride with the HOA, even though you're within your rights. Not the jerk. You mention in other comments that you have documentation on your ownership that proves the legality of your actions. I would hire an attorney and stop replying to them yourself. Have the attorney send a letter to the HOA to kindly stop harassing you when you are not part of their HOA, and that any harassment will be reported to the authorities. If you can afford it, set up cameras and let them know any trespasser will be recorded. Info: are you 100% sure that what you are doing is legal according to the property laws of your county, state, or country? Where I am, private property does not extend out onto the water like that. If you are in violation of any ordinances, laws, codes, etc., you would be the jerk. If not, then not. But this is a more nuanced question than just whether you are subject to the HOA or not. OP: yes, I know for 100% sure, as I have all the paperwork, including the documents that show which portions of the lake I own. Am I the jerk for refusing to show proof that the car is mine? For some context, my 20 male mom, who's 38 female, married my stepdad, who's 35, 10 years ago. They had my brother, who's 8 years old now, Scott. I see my stepdad as my father and his family as my paternal family, so I'll refer to him as Dad and my step-granddad as Gran. So Dad has a GTR that my Gran gave him a few years ago. That car is really cool. He also has a normal car that he drives to work, so the GTR is more for fun and showing off. My bro and I love that car, and my dad lets me drive it whenever I want. He even added me to the insurance when I turned 19 because I used the car almost every day until I was able to buy my own. Last week, I noticed Scott a bit sad, and he said that some kids at school were bullying him. Our parents went to his school to talk to the principal, and the problem is somewhat fixed, but he was still bummed, so I decided to surprise him yesterday by picking him up in our dad's car. I parked the car and got out to wait for him. I was sitting in the trunk when a guy approached me and said that I shouldn't sit in other people's cars. I laughed it off and said that it was mine, so it wasn't a problem. I must admit that I do look younger than 20, so he might have mistaken me for a high schooler and didn't believe me. He said that the car couldn't be mine and that I should get off of it before the owner gets back. I said that it was my car again, and he got mad and said, "Look, son, this isn't your car. Get down. I'll even take a picture or two of you with it." I was getting nervous, and when I get nervous, I tend to laugh, so he thought I was mocking him and yelled at me to get down, that if the car belonged to me, to show him the proof. Then he yelled that I was trying to steal the car. I asked him to leave me alone because I was waiting for my brother, and he did move a few meters, but then I noticed that he was making a call, and it turned out that he called the police on me. My brother was getting out at the same time. He was really happy to see me there in our dad's car and ran to give me a hug. I tried to pick him up to put him in the car, but the guy stopped me. I opened the door. It was obvious that the car was mine at that point. Either way, the police came and asked the normal questions. I explained to them that it was my dad's car, and the guy said, "Ha! I knew it wasn't yours." I showed them proof, my license, my dad's papers, the insurance paper with my name on it, and even a text with my dad where I said, "Hey, I'm gonna pick up Scott in the car." And he only answered with an "okay." I offered to call him so that they could ask him themselves, but they said there was no need. The police let me leave and scolded the other guy. Before driving off, the guy called me a jerk because I could have just shown him all of that, but instead I preferred to be a jerk. Not the jerk. He had no right to do what he did, just a nosy Parker. And why would you show him proof it's your car? He should have just minded his own business. OP. For real. Like, that thing has my family's address, my dad's full name, and his number. No one in their right mind would show that stuff to strangers. Not the jerk. This is what happens when people think they can get away with policing people without actually being police. Not the jerk. That's sketchy. I'm a girl, but imagine someone pestering me and wanting proof. Your license and registration has some personal information on it, and reading that immediately gave me stalker vibes. Probably not the case, but just a point about how weird this is. Or if else, I'd be concerned about them trying to find your address to try and steal your car. Just doesn't seem right to share personal info with a stranger. Karen demands my son reads for 2 hours a day. So I, 45 male, have a son, Callum, who's 15, with my ex-wife, Amanda. We had an amicable divorce when Callum was 2, and so far we've been co-parenting quite well. Now, I could say a lot of things about Amanda's parenting, but the long and short of it is that she and her new husband cater their parenting style to their 2 younger kids together, who are 11 and 8. Because of this, he's decreased his time at their house ever since he got the choice, and now he spends every other weekend at their house. Around a month ago, Amanda and her husband made a reading rule for the kids. The 8-year-old has to read 30 minutes a day, the 11-year-old has to read for an hour a day, and Callum has to read for 2 hours a day. I have no idea why they did this. I think it's because the 8-year-old is falling behind in his reading level, and they wanted to keep things fair between the kids. I think that this is ridiculous, as Callum is a very smart kid already, and he needs that time for homework and relaxing since he doesn't have that much free time to begin with. Amanda let me know that she expected me to enforce the reading rule when Callum is at my house too. I told her that I would not. She said that it was unfair to Callum's half-siblings that he could just leave for the house and not have to follow their rules, while they had to follow the rule no matter what. I told her tough luck. It's my house and I make the rules here, not her. Well, now Callum is thinking about not staying with her at all anymore due to the increasing strictness of her and her husband's rules. She told me that it's all my fault that he doesn't want to be around her anymore because I was so lax with the rules. I'm pretty sure I'm in the right here, but I thought it might be a good idea to get some perspective. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Requiring your kid to read 2 hours a day on top of required textbook reading and assigned English class reading seems like a good way to inspire a dislike for the hobby. Not the jerk. So how many hours a day are she and her husband reading? They should lead by example, and being full-grown adults, they probably should be reading for 4 hours a day. You know, to keep it fair. Not the jerk. This is ridiculous. 2 hours of reading on top of potentially hours of homework every day? She's damaging her relationship with him and pushing him away, and that's sad, but on her. Funny she's talking about fairness, but the 8-year-old has to read 30 minutes and the 15-year-old has to read for 2 hours, despite the 15-year-old no doubt having more homework and often more school commitments and other things drawing on their time. If it was 30 minutes as part of his homework, I could maybe understand. But making him read for 4 times more than the 8-year-old, who actually needs the practice as part of homework when he doesn't, is not fair. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his ex? Please let us know. There are many ways to learn new things, and forcing yourself to sit down with some boring book that you have no interest in is not the only way to learn. Yeah, we've read thousands of hours of Reddit stories over the past 5 years, and it hasn't made us any smarter, to be honest. Yeah, all it's done for us is made us lose faith in humanity. Refuse to approve an expense report for going less than 1% over? Okay then. So I was on an off-site short-term project. Coming from one of the cheapest to live countries in Europe and staying for months in Singapore, the project location, I had found some places that I could be eating for pretty cheap, and the food was good and within my taste palette. We were getting, let's say a random number, $60 per day for food expenses, but I was spending somewhere around $25 to $30 on average, with the highest ever getting to just under $50. Short project going long, drawn over 10 months by the point of this story, and our customer's client is raising a ton of issues. 70% of them are not really an issue. Discussed this a few times with some guys in my company, and a manager told me to take the client out for dinner and some drinks. He would confirm the extra expense, just be careful to not go too much overboard on the expenses. Specifically asked what that means, and he told me to try not to go over $200 to $250. We go out, and neither me nor the client really drink much, so we end up having some food and a drink each. The guys at the restaurant know me well by that point, and almost always do some rounding on the bill or bring something extra to the table on the house, and with them bringing plenty of finger food, I end up with a bill of $60.68. But yes, about 70 cents above the daily limit, way below the $200 allowance for that. End of month, I send the report in and put a special note for that day and night. Expense report goes through my company with no problems, but the customer, our company's customer, flags that receipt up as not acceptable and not to be covered. They put me in direct communication with the customer, and I explained, nope, not accepted, not covered. Talk again with my company and tell them the situation, and that manager advised me to do so, as well as mentioned he would confirm. But unfortunately, the guy is out sick and not returning for at least 2 weeks. The customer must have this settled by the 15th of the month, and he wants to hear specifically from the manager that I was advised to act in such a way and approved by that manager for him to cover it. This is getting crazy and out of hand, so my boss, owner of the company, just covers it from his side, the full $60.68, not just the 68 cents. Customer says no receipt that goes over $60 limit will be approved. Unfortunately for me, the customer is local to Singapore, and he randomly drops in at the job site. And I get to see him the day after the resolution above, and all comments were written in emails. Face to face, I tell him, "You do realize that I spent an average of less than $27 a day from the allowed $60 a day. This was laughable to be denied." He probably was offended, and he yells at me again the, "No receipts over $60 will be covered." Well, cue malicious compliance. At all 3 places that I eat every day for the past 10 months, they agree to print $60 receipts every time I eat at their place. They even agreed to split in half the remaining value between me and a tip to the server. I had requested for the entire amounts to go to the servers as tips, as I just cared for the petty revenge, but apparently all of them felt a 100% tip every day is uncomfortable for them. Next month's expense report is sent out, and the customer calls me directly, seething, and asks why every single daily receipt is at $60 from a specific date onwards. I just reply with, "No receipts over $60 will be covered, so I have to fit my meals within the allowance." He called to complain to my company, but the relevant person told him that they didn't understand and to please explain what agreement was broken. He never came back as far as I know. I continued charging the max for the remaining 2 months there, netting me a cool $700 and even better service, food, and chef experiments that were otherwise only internal to the staff of the restaurants. To be honest, I had to pay and having to deal with the idiot customer even more after that, but he was a handful before it as well. I can say that the project took at least a year of my life with all the stress and nerves. Am I the jerk for checking our nanny cam footage to prove I was being lied to? Recently, my spouse, my daughter, who's 5, and I were having dinner together. He took some food off her plate to try a bite, and she responded by shaking her finger and saying, "You need to ask." He said, "I'm sorry, you're right, I should ask," and then a few minutes later reached over to my plate and took some of my food without asking. I didn't think it was a great example for our daughter, considering it happened moments earlier, so I said, "You didn't ask, you just did the same thing to daughter." He said, "I assumed you were done eating," and I said, "You assumed? But just ask me." So he handed it back to me and said, "Can I have some of your garlic bread?" And I shared. Very calm, normal exchange. Because this was a non-issue and I was not upset at the situation, we tried to use it in marriage counseling as an example of how to communicate in certain situations, mainly when I say something hurt me and my spouse wants to explain how he experienced the event instead of apologizing. It became an issue when he only wanted to give his side of the food story in counseling. Later that day, I asked him calmly again if he would like to share his side to see if it changes my perspective. I said, "I can't argue with your experience since we both agree on what happened," and to my surprise, he indicated we did not agree. He told me he took the garlic bread from my plate because he got it for both of us. I knew this was nonsense, as I order from this restaurant frequently, and I know how much garlic bread comes with the dish. I got insanely angry because we argue constantly about how things happen, so I stormed off. Later, he came to me and said, "I'm sorry, I thought the garlic bread was mine, and I was wrong." So by this point, I'd been told that he got garlic bread for both of us, and then that he thought the bread was his. I felt crazy, as I usually do when these conversations happen with him, so I thought to check the nanny cam to see what really happened. He handed me my food saying, "And there's garlic bread on top for you." And then later, when I called him out for taking it from my plate, he didn't say, "This bread is mine," or "I got this to share." He said, "Okay, can I have some of your garlic bread?" I took these clips from our nanny cam and sent them to him, asking why he would lie about something so small and turn it into a massive thing. He immediately got mad and said, "I can't believe you would do something as ridiculous as checking the camera. You're so out of line," and he stormed off. So Reddit, am I the jerk or out of line for using our nanny cam to call my spouse out for lying? Not the jerk, but as I'm sure you know, the issue isn't the garlic bread. Not the jerk. He's mad he got caught gaslighting you. ETA. He knows and you know this isn't an isolated incident about the garlic bread, but to save face, he needs to turn it around on you. The fact that you had to actually look at camera footage to prove he wasn't lying to you, and then he lied during your marriage counseling session? Wow, your husband sucks. Not the jerk. You aren't out of line. You thought one thing happened, he said another thing happened, so you went and verified and showed him, "Hey, actually, this is what happened." Instead of him going, I guess you're right, my bad," he got really angry and stormed off. A completely normal and not over-the-top reaction to being shown that you're wrong. not serious. Everyone sucks here. You should not be getting insanely angry and storming off. Your husband has lots of other issues, including narcissistic traits and stealing food. I know a lot of the people on Reddit jump to the divorce conclusion, but sometimes, it might be a good idea. Punish me for being right? Good luck. Over a decade ago, I was a material handler at a manufacturing company. Pretty tedious work breaking down large batches of material into smaller manageable quantities for the workers. Gotta keep every station supplied, well organized, and order materials to meet future quotas. One day I notice a new lot of parts are out of spec. They're too small and will damage the final product, causing it to fail testing later. This part comes in lots between 5,000 to 30,000, depending on what was ordered and passed inspection from the supplier. I put a hold on the lot of 25,000, emailed the appropriate people, followed procedure. Looking through the system, I realized we only have about 1,000 on hand, one more lot in warehouse for 7,000. This is enough for 1 week. I place another order for 30,000. We usually get 25,000. It takes 2 weeks to get, another week for cleaning and polishing. I send off another email informing of the shortage and how it will impact production. The only response I got was, "We'll look into it." After we ran out of parts, I was ordered to take the out-of-spec parts off hold. I refused. An engineer hadn't cleared them. The engineer was on vacation out of town and the other didn't know. A few days later, some random engineer from another department told me that they were good and I was forced to release the lot. I got a verbal warning for insubordination and relieved of my MH duties. Got put back on production. 2 weeks later, all the parts started failing. 2 weeks worth of about 110 people's labor, machine time, untold tens, possibly hundreds of thousands of individual parts were wasted. Chaos erupts, mandatory overtime set, and I'm just smiling. About 2 months goes by, 4th of July weekend coming up, and I got a 5-day weekend with paid time off. Managers tried to cancel, but I already had it approved in January. Almost everyone in the room was going to be working the 5th and 6th, Friday and Saturday. People were quitting left and right. Being forced to work 60 hours burned them out. Cue malicious compliance. Since we had been working these few special machines so hard on overtime, the material was running out that it used to spray on the parts. To replace it, it required a 3-day cycle, which usually happened on a Friday to Sunday, every couple of months. We were about a week ahead of schedule with the overtime. I knew it, but no one else was paying attention. I decided to take a half day on Tuesday so I could leave during the team leads meeting that I used to be a part of. On my way out, I mentioned this little problem. A couple of them ran to confirm. I grabbed a soda and left. Got a text from a coworker. They ran out of material Wednesday morning. Everyone got a 4-day weekend like they were supposed to. 10 people, including myself, quit on Monday. Moral of the story, don't mess with the people that do all of your future planning if you can't do it yourself. Am I the jerk for not helping my neighbor with the kids after her husband left her? Background info. My husband and I, late 20s, male and female, have lived next to Jack and Jill for 2 years. We have a son who's 6, and they have 2 kids who are a similar age, but a little bit older. All the kids go to the same elementary school, and I used to see Jack in the car rider line. Our neighborhood is relatively close to the school, so the school bus does not pick up here. We have to walk or drive our kids to school. Jack and Jill have constantly had loud fights ever since they moved here. And by fights, I mostly mean Jill would scream at Jack and kick him out of the house on a weekly basis. Normally, he would sleep in his car and come back inside in the morning after she leaves for work. Jill works as a CNA at a nearby hospital, the 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. shift. Jack worked from home, like I do, which let him take the kids to school. Well, after this last fight, Jack packed up all of his stuff and left, flew back home to his mother in a different country. Jill recently came to me saying that she has no one to watch her kids from roughly 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. She asked if she could send them over in the morning, have me watch them and feed them breakfast and then take them to school, and then later pick them up and feed them dinner and watch them till she gets off work. I explained to her that being expected to be a second parent, basically to 2 kids, is not something I'm really interested in. I asked how much she was willing to pay, and she said she expected me to do it for free, since she has no friends and no one else to ask. She asked if I would watch them on the weekends so she could pick up extra shifts, otherwise she won't be able to pay the rent. I told her absolutely not, and that she's insane, basically, to think that I'd agree to something so unreasonable when we aren't even friends and our kids aren't friends either. My husband thinks I was a jerk and that we could offer to help, at least sometimes, for the kids' sake. My stance is that we both know she wouldn't do the same for us if the roles were reversed, since Jill isn't really a nice person. Am I the jerk for not helping my neighbor with her kids after her husband left? Nope, not the jerk. Do not budge. The husband needs to come back and step up. Tell your husband to look after the kids. Absolutely do not tell your husband any such thing. You, of course, know who will end up watching those kids. Not the jerk. This is quite an extensive and unreasonable expectation. It's not even her asking you for help. It's her expecting you to pick up her slack. 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. Monday through Friday, with breakfast and transportation. 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, with snack, dinner, and transportation. Weekends as needed. And let's not forget, it's about time for summer break. So you'd what? Have to provide full daycare while she works? She needs to come up with a plan of her own that does not involve forcing neighbors to parent her kids. Am I the jerk for refusing to share a single piece of my mom's art? My parents got married straight out of high school, had me, 25 female, right away, and then split up when I was 3. But they stayed close friends till the day my mother passed. My dad remarried Anna when I was 7. She had a daughter, Eve, who's 22. Then they had our brother Jake, who's 16, together. Jake was really sick when he was a toddler, so our parents spent a lot of time at the hospital with him, and I spent a lot of time at my mom's house. Eve's dad worked weird hours, so my mom was more than happy to take Eve too most of the time. She loved hanging out with us. My mom was a talented and passionate artist, and she was determined to foster a love of art in us. And she did for both of us, but Eve is far more talented than I am, and her and my mom bonded over their shared love of painting. My mother passed suddenly this January. I was always extremely close with her, and I was and still am completely devastated. I still can't accept that she's gone forever. I miss her so much. In late April, I finally got up the spirit to start organizing her things. Eve approached me after I mentioned that I was going to my mother's home to sort through some stuff, and she asked me if she could look through my mom's paintings and have a few as keepsakes because my mother was such an inspiration for her. I don't want to, and I refused. Not the paintings. I'm willing to give her clothes, jewelry, furniture, almost anything, but the paintings and journals are closest things I have left of my mom. There's pieces of her soul in there. It's not just stuff. They're the most personal items she left, and I don't want to let a single one go. Eve got really upset and said she didn't care about any of the other things either, and she didn't think she was asking for that much. She said my mother was an important person in her life and that they had a strong relationship. Eve believes that my mother would have left her something if she had had the opportunity to decide. I still said no, and Eve went to her mom to complain, and now my immediate family is torn on the issue and arguing when we see each other. My dad understands, but thinks I can give up 1 or 2. And that I might change my mind in a couple years once the pain isn't so fresh, and I do think that could have happened before, but Eve and Anna are pushing me so hard on it and being passive-aggressive towards me, and I feel completely different about them now. We all used to be close. I understand she wasn't a stranger to my mom, but that's just not enough to me. I think my own grief is bigger, and to ask me for such a personal thing so soon after her passing was insensitive. And I'm even more upset that they don't even see the irony of Eve sending her own living mother after me for my mom's stuff. My boyfriend wants me to just give her one and repair my family, so I stopped doing this to myself. But I think I want to stand my ground here. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. The giving of gifts is an act of generosity. If you aren't feeling it, you shouldn't give. Your choice, no matter what anyone else thinks or feels. No jerks here. I don't think this is about the paintings as much as this is about your grieving. Ask for time to grieve and process. Use that time to figure out what your mom would have wanted to do. Ask yourself if it's fair to hold on to all of the pieces of your mom or whether she'd want you to share with those that she was closest to. Not the jerk. I ended up giving away a lot of my dad's things to my brother and his friends out of guilt after he passed, and I regret it regularly. Though if you're open to it, ask Eve if she would be open to prints of the paintings you could make for her. Maybe also communicate with her, as you said in this post, that the wound is still fresh and you'll reconsider when time has passed. We were told we absolutely cannot use our work phones when not on the clock. The job I do requires tons and tons of communication, coordinating, and often lots of things are time sensitive. So often, if one of us can't get a hold of someone, we are absolutely done for. So it's been the norm for us to communicate in advance so we can plan out our day. It was never a big deal to us, as it usually just takes maybe 5 to 10 minutes to confirm everything is going as planned or be informed of any changes a few hours before we start the day. This is more to make our life and work easier for everybody. About 2 months ago, the company decided that we aren't allowed to use our work phones unless on clock. They cracked down on everyone who did it aggressively. The supervisors and managers would even call or send a text to employees when they aren't on the clock just to test us. Anyone who replied would be written up. No matter how much we complained, they refused to budge or listen at all. They get the final say. Grudgingly, we all agreed to follow the policy. No surprise, everybody decided to just stop replying to their phone as soon as their shift is over. Surprise, surprise, nearly everybody has been late pretty much every day. A lot of appointments have been missed. Tons of mistakes have been made because nobody was able to get the answers they needed. Clients start to complain like crazy. The office and managers were immediately slammed with tons of phone calls and getting very behind on everything. This week, we're all hauled into a meeting. They were asking us what they can do to help us fix this mess. We all complained about the whole thing, as it wasn't a fun time for us either. Most of us just basically told them we warned them repeatedly and they weren't having it, so they can clean this mess up. They tried to suggest a special code so we know if it's extremely urgent, but no one wants to carry their personal phone and work phone around all the time just in case. In fact, most of us told them we would just turn the phone off or put it on mute as soon as we got home. They tried to float the idea of making us all salary, which was immediately shot down as they have a horrible history of overworking their salary workers. They tried to ask us if we're willing to go back to the old way. It didn't go well either, as there was a mixed reaction. Some were cool with the idea, some were like, absolutely not, unless I'm getting paid for that time, and some just flat out don't want to deal with phones when they aren't on the clock at all. The meeting ended without anything being fixed. Now the CEO and HR and other upper managers have been pulling their hair out trying to figure out how to navigate this mess up. It was so glorious to watch them running into the wall repeatedly over stupid adjustments that nobody wanted. Am I the jerk for making a separate portion of stuffing for my son? I, 33 female, am married to John, who's 35 male. Together we have a daughter who's 3 and are currently expecting our second kid together. We both also have a kid from previous relationships. I have Liam, who's 8, from my previous marriage, and my husband has Ava, who's 10. I make Sunday lunch for my family every week. On Friday, Liam asked if I could make stuffing without onions this week. Liam doesn't normally eat stuffing. He tried it a few times, decided he wasn't a fan, and that was it. He tried it with his dad the weekend before. We have 50-50 custody, so our weekends vary, and he liked it. I agreed, and on Sunday made my son his own stuffing without onions. It's no big deal, after all, and I'm happy to make separate portions of anything if it means my kids eat more. This is where the problem starts. We sit at the dining table, and John points out that Liam has stuffing on his plate. Liam tells him that I made him stuffing without onions because he likes it without the onions. Immediately, I noticed Ava's mood sour, and when I pressed her, she asked why I didn't make her stuffing without onions when she'd asked about it months ago. Now, I'd understand where she was coming from if she had actually asked, but I had no clue what she was talking about. I said as much, and she told me that she'd brought it up with John, who said he had talked to me. John never spoke to me about it and told Ava that it was too much work for me to take out the onions just for her. John said he didn't tell me because he thought it would be too hard on me, wanted to make things easier, thought I'd only say no anyway. He even said that it didn't make sense to make a separate portion for just one person. He said it was stupid that I'd even done it for Liam. He said the kids should learn to either make do with onions or not have stuffing at all, because not everything in life is going to go their way. I called him an idiot. I then went to the kitchen and got the rest of the onionless stuffing for Ava to try. Later that evening, Ava went back to her mother's and told her what happened, which caused an argument between her and John, and they're not on good terms anyway. John has been angry with me since. He says it's my fault Ava and her mother are mad at him. He says I should have just left the darn stuffing alone, that I'm just spoiling my son by giving in to him like that. There's been some name calling, but I'd rather not repeat what he said. Liam must have told Mike what happened too, because he told me that he thinks John is overreacting. John's mother and the older sister think I'm a jerk, but his brother has told me to just ignore him. My parents are also on my side because they used to make separate portions for me when I was a kid if I didn't like a specific ingredient. My sister told me to post on here to see if the majority think I'm in the wrong or not. So I dread to ask, am I the jerk for making a separate portion of stuffing to suit my son's taste? OMG, not the jerk. And I can see why your husband's first marriage didn't work out. He's cruel. Your kid is 8, not 18. If it wasn't too much trouble to make him something he would prefer to eat, why wouldn't you do that for him? Sounds like your family doesn't like onions. Maybe no more onions. For real though, John's reaction to you feeding your kid is horrendous. If it were me, I'd be concerned about what nonsense he's saying to your kids when you're not around. Not the jerk. Next time, make him stuffing with crap he hates in it and make him eat it to see how good it feels. Good on you for accommodating your son. And now you know your daughter also doesn't want onions. John needs better communication skills, especially if y'all have kids. Not the jerk. Your husband is just mad he got caught lying to his daughter about talking to you, which probably has more to do with him not wanting to deal with it than you not wanting to have extra work. Normally, I wouldn't assign an extra assumption of poor behavior, but I feel like a guilty conscience is often the cause of an overreaction like this. He knows he's being a bad communicator. You called him an idiot? We're all just gonna breeze past this and dogpile on the husband? Ah, wait, forgot this was Reddit for a hot second. Of course we are. I'm not even disagreeing with OP. He sounds like an idiot, but he's also not wrong about teaching kids that they don't get everything they want in life. The obvious problem here is the way you and your husband communicate, and if your problem resolution toolbox has "you're an idiot" sitting at the top ready to be pulled out that quickly, you need to think about how condescending and rude you're being towards him. Everyone sucks here, but also you're the jerk for that comment. How do I get my neighbor to stop texting me? I live in a garden unit, and my neighbor that lives above me is driving me nuts. She works from home, so she's constantly around and completely nosy. I like my privacy and solitude, and would like to think I'm an overall quiet tenant. I work 10 hours daily, and I don't even have a TV, so it drives me up a wall when I'm bombarded with texts about random stuff. She waits until I get home and then let out my dog to go to the bathroom, and I can hear her upstairs going from the front of her apartment to the back where I am to gossip to me and complain about her encounters for the day. She will text me back-to-back messages asking me about work or to complain about other neighbors, whether or not I even reply to her. For perspective, since Thursday, she sent me 41 messages and I only sent 3 responses. All of my responses are very short and direct. I'm not interested in having a conversation or friendship with her at all because quite frankly, she's rude and negative, but I don't want to upset her since she lives above me. I've been living here almost 2 years, her just a month or 2 longer than me, and I've never once complained about her being too loud, although I do hear her daily. There were a few times when she stopped my laundry. She has her own laundry, so she had to walk outside, downstairs, and into my shared laundry room because it was too loud, or brought my garbage back close to my door because she thought I had taken it out on the wrong day. I didn't. How can I go about setting boundaries with her, preferably in a polite way, since me ignoring her didn't seem to be clear enough? It sounds like you've tried going the polite route, but she is either too insensitive or too dense to pick up on it. I'm not saying you need to be mean, but a more direct approach may work better. Tell her to stop talking to you, and don't, for any reason, touch your stuff. Laundry too loud? That's what headphones are for. Garbage out on the wrong day? Tough. It can sit there, and you've chosen to deal with any consequences. Want to gossip with someone? There's a fabulous place for you called Reddit. Show her this post if it helps drive the point home. If she still doesn't get it, act like you don't see her. She starts talking to you, don't respond. If you're walking, just walk past her as she continues to speak to you. If you're sitting and she approaches you, whip out your phone at your earliest convenience and call someone you know that you haven't talked to in a while, or someone that you talk to all the time, or anybody else, really, as long as it isn't her. Completely refuse to acknowledge her existence. I will say that I am normally one to try and have a friendly conversation to resolve issues, but she sounds like that has been tried and didn't work. Take this advice with a grain of salt. Be prepared for retaliation, but stand firm and stay polite as long as she doesn't escalate. My ex expects me to take his kid to Disneyland. Alright, so I have a son who's 13 with my ex-husband. We got divorced because he was having an affair and he had a kid with his affair partner. Now he's a single dad because the affair partner left. My son goes over to his house on weekends and sometimes his kid comes over to my house because my son and him are somewhat friends, but I don't really mind. The problem now is that I'm planning on taking me and my son to Disney, and I've been saving up for this, as I believe he should go there at least once in his life to experience it, as well as him having good grades for the whole semester. I believe that my son must have told his half-brother, as my ex-husband called me and asked me what day I'm planning to leave and am I driving or him. I was confused initially, but I realized what he was talking about and told him that it was just going to be a trip for me and my son. He started to get mad and accused me of favoring my son over his half-sibling and trying to be petty for his past actions and such, and told me I should at least have offered for his son to go too. I told him no, as I wasn't going to pay for another plane ticket and other supplies, and that if his son wanted to go, he needed to pay for himself. I hung up before he could say anything else. Now my son says that his dad was disappointed about my decision and to try to change my mind so his half-sibling could have fun too, and some other remarks. My ex and a few of my friends who heard about the situation say that I'm the jerk for not letting his brother go on the trip as well, and that I'm being selfish and petty. So I'm starting to reconsider everything and just relenting. So I wanted an outside opinion. Am I the jerk? I don't care if your ex did want to pay. You are better than me for even allowing the half-sibling over at your house. You don't owe your ex anything. You don't owe the kid anything other than basic human kindness when you do happen to interact. But he is not your family just because your ex had an affair. Not the jerk. I'm sure your ex manipulated you while you were in a relationship, and he's sure trying to do it now. And if he wants his son to experience Disney, then he can take him himself. You don't owe your son's friend a plane ticket and admission ticket. My wife expects me to raise her best friend's kid, and I'm sick of it. I, 31 male, am married to my wife Amber, who's 30. We have a daughter together, Emma, who's 7. The problem is my wife's best friend, Jennifer. She has a daughter as well named Harper, who's 7. Well, Harper's dad is a lazy jerk, and he refuses to do anything with his daughter. He's the type of guy that brags about how he never had to change a diaper. Jennifer and Harper are usually at Amber and my house on the weekends because Harper's dad is drinking and watching sports all weekend. On Saturday, I normally spend all day with my daughter because I don't see her as much as I would like to during the week. However, with Harper being there every Saturday, anything I do with Emma, I have to take Harper with us. Take Emma to the zoo? It's Emma, Harper, and I. Taught them both how to ride bikes. Take them both to dance class. Take them both to the kids' salon, and so on. Mother's Day was the last straw. I took them both to dance class Saturday morning. Amber and I also pay for both dance classes because deadbeat dad won't. On the way home, Emma asked if we could stop to get something for Mom for Mother's Day. I said sure, but then I ended up having to buy something for Harper for her mom as well. On the way home, I just kept thinking, why am I buying someone else's wife a Mother's Day gift? That's his job. A few days later, because I didn't want to ruin Mother's Day, I told my wife that I'm sick of raising Harper. Her real father needs to step up. I'm tired of it taking away time that I get to spend with Emma. She said that Jennifer is her best friend and we need to be there for Harper. Now she's not speaking to me and is sleeping in the guest room. So, am I the jerk? Just wanted to add some updates to questions that I see. Emma and Harper are best friends. It was my idea to spend Saturday with Emma. I work more during the week, so I wanted to spend Saturday with Emma and to give my wife a bit of a break. We pay for things that Jennifer's husband thinks are a waste of money, like dance class, and Jennifer can't afford to pay for these things herself. Jennifer and Harper do things with Amber and Emma 1 or 2 times a week together during the weeknights. Not the jerk. If your wife wants to step up for Harper, then she needs to do that, not put it on you. She should be taking her places and doing things with her. Not the jerk. Stop taking Harper. It's that simple. You're having dad-daughter bonding time and don't want to tag along. If Harper wants to come along on these things, then make her mother come with you, but not your wife. Not the jerk. Just make plans to do something with your daughter and tell the friend that you will not be taking her daughter ahead of time. Not the jerk. Personally, I'd never be able to not take in a kid who needed it. A lot of kids with bad parents have their mental health saved by the kindness of friends' parents who step up. That being said, it's not something you're required to do. I do feel bad for the kid though, but none of this is her fault. Complain to me pretending to be the patient's father? Well, let's involve her parents then. I used to work at a very nice private hospital where the place looked like a hotel. The food was great and the service unrivaled. We were voted best private hospital in the country quite a few times, and all around people were happy and the care was great. The nurses were mostly old school, stern, but very passionate about patient care, with no time for anything that stops them from doing their job. My job was to focus on marketing and complaints, and to be honest, I didn't have a lot of work on the complaints side, but every now and again something would come up. If there was an incident, the RNs would usually come and warn me to expect something and give their side of the story. One morning as I got to work, a registered nurse was waiting at my door to update me on an incident that happened the previous night. There was an 18-year-old patient who had a small operation, but was prone to dizziness and fainting. Now, slips and falls are a big thing in hospitals, and these incidents get monitored very closely. Since she was a slip and fall risk, they moved her to a private room right in front of the nurse's station so that she could be monitored throughout the day and night. One night, the tattoo-clad, older nurse's description, 20-something-year-old boyfriend comes to visit and forgets that this is in fact a hospital and not a hotel. Old-school, stern nurse realized something is amiss when the room's doors were closed, and after she pushed the door open, the curtains around the bed were drawn too. Seeing that privacy takes second priority to a patient's healing and safety in a hospital, old-school nurse wasn't having any of this. She pulls the curtains open, pulls the boyfriend out of the hospital bed, and gave them both a talking to. Tattoo boyfriend left soon afterwards, apparently furious that his evening was ruined. Sure enough, 2 hours after the nurse visited my office, I get an email from patient's father detailing how his daughter's privacy was invaded the previous night, how she had a private conversation with her boyfriend, and how they were unfairly treated by a nurse. I was surprised that an older gentleman would write an email to a hospital with so many spelling errors and a complete lack of punctuation, but the email address, something like tattooguy@gmail, was a total giveaway as to who the real author was. Now technically, I was just able to reply on the email, detailing our experience and side of the story. However, sharing private patient information on an email to an unconfirmed email address is bound to get me in some serious trouble. So I did what any sane and perhaps slightly malicious person would do. I called document control and asked them to pull up the email address on file for me. This happened to belong to her mom. I forwarded the email to her, mentioning that I received the following email from her daughter's father, but since she's the contact person on file and we need to stick with the people that we have permission to contact, may she be as kind as to share our response with him. I then detailed what the nurse told me about the patient being a slip and fall risk that required constant monitoring, about the boyfriend visiting, about the door and curtains being closed, and the nurse catching them in the hospital bed together. I apologized on behalf of the nurse for invading their privacy, but explained that open doors are protocol to ensure a patient's safety, and our main priority is getting a patient safe, healthy, and back at home as soon as possible. I ended the mail with my contact details and invited her to contact me if she had any further questions. Well, if the parents didn't know about the incident, now they did. I'm told the daughter was well behaved for the remainder of the time, and the boyfriend didn't stop by once during the rest of the patient's stay. So, lessons learned. Don't include your parents' details on your hospital file as your main contact details if you don't want them contacted. Don't try and catfish a hospital employee, and respect the hospital for what it is, a place of healing and not a hotel. Am I the jerk for telling my fiance her sister is not invited to our wedding? So I, 27 male, and my fiance, 28 female, have been together close to a year, engulfed for half of that. We're planning a wedding in the fall of 24 and have started a guest list. She comes from a big family and I'm an only child. We are close with one of her sisters in particular and often went to visit her and play board games and such. This sister has a fiance and is pregnant. Recently, my fiance told me that her sister was having a shotgun wedding before the baby arrived in order to keep with their traditional values and appease their family's religious desires. Back up a bit. I've done a lot for her sister and soon-to-be husband. I planned a birthday party for his son from another marriage. I've given her rides, always brought small gifts when I would visit. I've gone as far as to stop everything I was doing to help her during a health scare while she was still pregnant. I really felt like I was a part of the family. Fast forward. In a text to my fiance upon announcing her wedding, her sister made a point to say, "It's a small wedding, no plus ones. OP can come to the dinner afterwards. All fine by me." I honestly don't really mind, as ceremonies can be dull, and I understand why she would only want to have immediate family at her small wedding. I woke up on the day of the wedding to help my fiance get ready and drive her over to her sister's house. I planned on driving my fiance, her sister, and her sister's soon-to-be husband to the venue and bringing them to the dinner afterwards. My fiance told me, "It's okay, just drop me off at my sister's and we'll get a ride over." A little odd, but I was fine with that too. I arrived over there, and as my fiance got out of the car, I asked if I could come in and congratulate them. She seemed hesitant and said, Okay. Let me just text my sister to make sure. I was dressed in plain clothes and was hesitantly invited to come inside. We walked up to the house. Inside was a party of her siblings and their friends and significant others, all dressed up. They all looked at me and didn't say much. I saw another one of her sisters, and her new boyfriend was in a suit. Everyone was invited. The no plus ones only applied to me. I immediately left and in a text told my fiance they were off the guest list for our wedding. My fiance is upset with this because her sister is her close friend. She said maybe I did something to upset them, which is why I wasn't invited. But I've been nothing but kind and caring to her entire family. I've spent hundreds of dollars and gone above and beyond for everyone. Now we're fighting over this. Am I the jerk? Seems to me your fiance knew beforehand about you being the only one not invited. I think you also have a fiance problem if she can keep this from you, as well as not backing you up on not inviting her sister. Not the jerk. What about not inviting your fiance to your marriage? I mean, not marrying her. Yeah, it should be a legit thought. Your fiance knew everything all along. Well, what you got was the prize of being a too nice guy. Rethink this relationship, buddy. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Your fiance went along with excluding and manipulating you into believing the no plus ones rule. No matter how much she may try to pin this on her sister, family, whoever, she was an active participant. A true partner wouldn't have allowed that, or at the absolute bare minimum would have been honest with you about why you weren't wanted at the event. This behavior is not even a red flag, it's a biohazard sign. You've been together for less than a year, so you still have ample room to make a clean break and find someone who appreciates and includes you. Am I the jerk for wearing a strong perfume? I, 19 female, am from a Middle East country. Most perfumes here have a very strong scent and people can smell them from far away. I'm not a fan of these types of perfume, and I always wore light scented. That is, until my mom's best friend gifted me a tester of an Arab perfume I honestly really liked. That was 3 years ago, and I've been using it since then. A few weeks ago, I arrived to the Philippines for a vacation, and I've been enjoying it here, and I'm still using the perfume, and my cousins liked it. So I didn't see any issue until today when I was in the store with my mom looking around at stuff. And then a woman walks up to me and said my weird perfume attacks her poor nose, and what kind of perfume is that? I didn't say anything because I was embarrassed and I didn't know what to say. My mom told her off and the woman left us alone. Now I feel bad because people have different noses, and I know most people are sensitive when it comes to strong scents, and some people can't even breathe being around someone who wears too much perfume. And if you're confused about how much I do spray, I use 8 sprays before going out. 2 on each side of the neck, shoulder, and waist. 2 sprays on both arms. I hope it's understandable to read. I don't respray throughout the day because it can last a day and a half, except if there's an occasion of something special, and if I do, I don't spray as much as before. Am I the jerk? Okay, I now understand that I'm in the wrong here. I want to say that I wasn't aware that 8 sprays is bad, and I thought that's what all people do, and thought it was normal. Most people I've encountered, especially in college, bathe themselves in perfume every day, probably more than 8 sprays. The classroom would be filled with mixed perfumes from here and there, and some resprays a lot too, and I get annoyed about it, and I considered mine as less as how much they sprayed. Well, I didn't know that I was one of them too. You're the jerk. It's totally obnoxious to wear that much perfume. You say it's very strong, and yet you wear 8 sprays of it? You're basically trailing your scent like Pepe Le Pew. Perfume is a very personal thing. You love the scent, so put on enough that you smell it, not the whole shopping center. You're the jerk. Apply less. You can wear a strongly scented perfume, but the amount you apply will have a big impact on how far away people can smell the perfume. They shouldn't be able to smell it unless they're standing right next to you. 8 sprays is an insane amount to use. With my perfume, I do 2 sprays, maybe 3 if I know I'll be outdoors. And those sprays are actually under clothing, so they diffuse less. Try doing a spray on your neck or chest and a spray on one arm, then pat your arms together. Don't rub. Am I the jerk for breaking a promise to take my niece and nephew for the summer? I, 34 female, and my wife, 35 female, were planning to keep her brother's kids, who are 10 and 7, for this summer, as her brother and sister-in-law wanted a break and time to themselves. We figured this would work out, as a long-term fostering just finished for us, and we'd been considering taking a break for a little bit to regroup and focus on our relationship before we took on our next placement. However, we got an emergency placement call last night with the agency asking if we'd be open to taking on 3 kids. Out of respect for them, I won't give any of their details, who needed immediate placing that would likely be long-term. And after asking for an hour to discuss it, we sat down together and decided we'd do it and called back to accept. However, given this and the attention these kids will need because of their situation, we've decided bringing 2 other kids not part of this sibling dynamic into the house for a long-term stay is not wise. So my wife and I called her brother to explain this, and I even suggested, as we'll be somewhat settled by then and in a routine, that if my wife wanted to take her niece and nephew somewhere for the weekend, perhaps to visit her parents, I'd be more than happy to hold down the fort with our new kids so my brother-in-law and his wife could get at least a little bit of time together. My wife liked that idea and agreed it could work out, but my brother-in-law did not like it one bit and got upset with us both over this, as we had promised, and it would break the kids' hearts. My wife was annoyed by this and said that it wasn't like he'd booked a vacation anyway, and he and his wife just wanted to spend time at their home, and it's not as perfect as the whole summer, but surely it's better than nothing. My brother-in-law then threw in our faces that his kids were blood-related, and yet we were taking in strangers over his. My wife has a temper when our fosters are insulted, and she began to go off on him, and I took the phone off speaker at this point to let her calm down, and I told him if he felt that way, we'd be unable to watch his kids at all for the foreseeable future. And while we loved our niece and nephew, we also loved all the kids in our care, and until he realized that and apologized, he would not get to take advantage of our childcare. I also may have told him I hoped his kids never needed to be in a placement like the ones we will be caring for. A low blow, I know, but my wife wasn't the only one annoyed. Since then, some of my wife's family have been hounding us over this and how unfair it is of us to let down the kids, and how while I was her wife, I had no right to take over the phone call at the end and make that decision alone. We've since stopped answering all calls from them for now. Maybe it was wrong to take over the call and to cancel plans we'd promised already. I don't much care about upsetting him, but I feel guilty for my nephew and niece as we broke a promise that we made. Edit. Hi guys, bit busy currently, so this is an update to answer the top questions as I don't have time to respond individually. I'll try to check back in a few hours. My brother-in-law and his wife both work from home. There's plenty for the kids to do in the area, and his wife's family also lives close by for emergencies. It's no different from any other school holiday plan they usually have. We aren't leaving them in a rut, with having to be at work with no one to watch the kids. Also, there seems to be some confusion. We were never going to watch them for 3 months back to back. I'd be horrified at someone wanting to get rid of their kids for a quarter of the year. The summer is a phrase here referring to a point in the summer break. Our intention was to watch them for July. Not the jerk. What kind of parents think they're entitled to 3 months off from their kids? You must wear black footwear. Okay, if you insist. When I was younger, I worked in an office for a printing company. My boss was notorious for his strict adherence to company policies, particularly when it came to dress code. One day he made an announcement that all employees must wear black footwear with no exceptions. This rule caught my attention, and I decided to have some fun at my boss's expense because he really was an awful micromanaging boss. You could never do anything right. So the next day I walked into the office wearing black flippers, diving flippers, instead of traditional black shoes, which is clearly how black footwear is meant to have been interpreted. As I made my way down the hallways, all my colleagues couldn't help but burst into laughter. The sight of a professional employee strutting around in flippers was too amusing to resist. Word quickly spread, and soon everyone was giggling and peeking out of their cubicles to catch a glimpse of my act of defiance, or shall we say malicious compliance. When the boss caught sight of my unconventional footwear, his face turned bright red with anger. He stormed over, veins pulsating on his forehead and everything, ready to shout. However, before he got a chance to say anything, I pointed out that I was indeed following his policy of wearing black footwear. I think he was close to completely losing it because he stormed off into his office, grunting like a warthog. Technically, I had complied with his instructions, and there was no explicit mention of traditional footwear in the policy. He couldn't take any disciplinary action without seeming unfair. My colleagues found the situation even more hilarious at this point. I got many compliments for outsmarting our strict boss. From that day forward, my act of malicious compliance became legendary in the office. It sparked a newfound sense of rebellion, with employees pushing the boundaries of the dress code in hilarious and imaginative ways. Some wore black sneakers with flashing LED lights, while others donned black high-heeled slippers. The office became a more vibrant and joyful place, with employees embracing their individuality while technically adhering to his directives. The absurdity of the situation left him fuming, but he didn't want to look stupid by changing his policy again so quickly. It's safe to say we didn't see him in the main office much after that day. In the end, I hope he learned an invaluable lesson about the importance of specifics and clarity, while also learning that people can have fun while working to create a better morale and improve the workplace. But a week later, he was gone. He was replaced by a lovely lady that found this whole situation very funny and complimented all of us on how good the morale was. Woman went ballistic because I gave her free food. So I'm chilling at the bar and this lady walks up to me with a to-go plate of cheese nachos and tells me she's missing her shrimp. I'm like, okay, I'll go tell the kitchen to make them for you real quick. And as I'm walking away, she tells me she's also missing a salad and the extra meat she ordered for her quesadilla. So I'm like, darn, the kitchen usually doesn't make that many mistakes. I decide to look at her online order and discover she didn't pay for the item she's asking for. She asked for the extra stuff in the notes section of the food, but didn't charge herself. I'm like, okay. Ma'am, you didn't order the correct food on the ordering service. And she responds, I know what I ordered. I ordered shrimp nachos, not cheese nachos. She's saying all this as I'm showing her our iPad, showing her that she ordered cheese nachos, and even how the prices don't match. She then starts getting mad because we got her other stuff wrong. She says that we should have put all the stuff from the notes with the food because she had wrote, I'd like extra meat. I'll pay for it when I get there. Problem is, she had already left the building with the food, then came back when she saw we didn't put the extra stuff she asked for free. So I point out that, ma'am, you left the building and didn't pay for the extra meat. Meaning, I tried to convey to her that it looks like she never planned on paying for any of the extra stuff in the first place, but she played dumb. She then started blaming the cooks for not telling me to call her and to let her know she didn't input the food correctly. Honestly, she got us there, and I let her know that I'd let the cooks know not to do that again. Then she starts complaining about how, why didn't she just get the stuff for free? And at this point, I was out of patience and told her, ma'am, you got what you paid for. We aren't allowed to give out free stuff. And this gets her riled up even more, and she starts yelling, no, I didn't. I assume because she feels entitled to the free stuff she was asking for. At this point, all I say is, I'm gonna get you the shrimp from the back, but I'm going to have to charge you for it. Is that okay? She yells, fine, that's what I'm here for. I let the cooks know, and they make me a side of shrimp and a salad that she asked for. I walk out and hand her the stuff, and she asks, how much is it? And I say, it's free. Just please take a look at what you order on the DoorDash. And this is where she goes ballistic, yelling, no, I don't need no free handouts. I didn't ask for it for free. And starts yelling out more nonsense. And at this point, I'm like, ma'am, please leave. And she leaves all angry. Could I have gone about this more diplomatically? Probably, but she had such a bad attitude, I honestly wasn't going to bother. Am I the jerk for telling my husband to skip gym days or reduce his time at the gym? My husband treats the gym like a religion. He absolutely must go to the gym at specific times on specific days, 5 days per week. It's a 2 to 2.5 hour workout each day, plus 30 minutes for driving, plus 30 minutes for his second shower each day. So it's like an extra 3 to 3.5 hours each time. He'll turn down plans with friends if it conflicts with his workout schedule, and he'll push aside any other conflicting responsibilities because it's his #1 priority in life, and I'm getting fed up with it. I've thought the amount of time he spends at the gym is a lot, but I've never been super into the gym and don't really know if it's all that much. He says it's really not that much time at the gym. We both work a lot, and I find myself having to pick up a lot of the slack around the house and taking care of chores, errands, and responsibilities because he just doesn't have the time in the day. I find myself hardly sleeping, and I can never find the time to work out myself because I just feel so overwhelmed with everything I have to take care of outside of work. If I need him to take care of something on a certain day and it conflicts with his gym schedule, it's always a hard no. If I ask him to take care of things a lot of the time, he just won't have time to do it between work and the gym. If I ask him to not go a day because I need his help, he'll make me feel extremely guilty because he frames it as me not caring about his health, because going to the gym is ultimately for his health and well-being, and he says he'll be more well-rested and more able to help me out if he goes to the gym. But I've been growing increasingly more resentful, and I really feel that the gym is more of a hobby for him and more for the goal of building his body. He mostly does weightlifting, not cardio, and he just uses health as an excuse to make me feel guilty for being a bad wife who doesn't care about his health. He's constantly telling me I'm crazy for getting on his case about the gym and says that it's ridiculous that I'm asking for him to deprioritize his health. I don't know if I'm a jerk for thinking that he shouldn't spend so much time at the gym and making it his #1 priority over other responsibilities, because I know that health is a priority, but I also don't know if there's a reasonable balance I should be asking him to strike here. I'm just going to toss this to think about. My brother did the same thing, 5 days a week, always the same time, lots of hours, refused to alter his schedule, etc. He was cheating on my ex-sister-in-law, and this was how he arranged it. He left his cell phone out one day when he was late, and the affair partner sent a text. Just do a bit of quiet investigating if this raises a flag. First, this isn't about the gym. This is about him not pulling his weight around the house and deprioritizing your relationship. He's counting on you to pick up the slack. You don't mention having kids, so here's my advice. Stop overcompensating for his lack of care and attention to your home and your relationship. Sit down and write out everything that needs to happen to keep your home and lives running, aside from both of you working. Estimate times for all of it. Tell him that you are not going to complain about the gym anymore, but you have been doing the bulk of the work. Show him the list and explain that you will not be doing more than half anymore. Now stop doing more than half. Then take 2 hours a day and go enjoy your summer. Find something to do that you love. When he complains about stuff being done, simply remind him that you are doing your share and he needs to handle his. When he complains about you being unavailable, ask him if he wants to plan a date night with you. Your husband needs to step up, but he needs to experience the gaps you have before he can recognize them. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. He's married to the gym, and no, 2 to 2.5 hours is not normal. Any workout should be like an hour at most. In fact, you need to rest in between days so your body heals from the previous workouts. He's using the gym to get out of responsibilities and, well, his family life. Neighbor does illegal backyard burn during fire season and gives me an asthma attack. We live in a real woodsy place and there is no HOA. I'm pretty sure my neighbor owns his house and is not renting it. We also had a really bad wildfire in our area 2 years ago that caused our whole town to be evacuated for a month. Fire is a really big deal here, and backyard burning needs to be approved by the fire station and the county air pollution district. We're at wit's end with my neighbors. He, his wife, and their kid moved in back in 2020, and I've hated every moment of it. He plays music real loud, yells all the time, and now he's doing backyard burns. I have really bad asthma and was doing the dishes this afternoon when I suddenly smelled a bunch of smoke. I had an intense asthma attack from it, and I still haven't fully recovered. I bring my inhaler with me and go outside to see what's going on. My neighbor had a huge amount of smoke coming from his yard and was just chilling and watching it. I walked down the street to where I'd be visible and asked him what he was doing. "I'm burning stuff." I told him that my windows were open and a bunch of smoke was coming in my house and I had an asthma attack and that he can't be burning so close to people's houses. I also asked him if he had a permit for this, which he claimed he didn't need one, but he does, and I pointed him to where he could get one. Although he wouldn't even qualify since we live in a residential neighborhood and his home is on less than 1/4 of an acre. He got really aggressive with me for confronting him, yelling at me, saying, "I can't tell him what to do on his property." I told him if what he's doing is affecting my health, I have a right to complain. He then went on about how awful my husband and I were because we confronted him one time 2 years ago when he started playing his music so loudly that we couldn't even hear our own television. I told him that I was trying to be nice talking to him because I could have just called the fire department and could have had him fined. He claimed since he didn't know he needed a permit, then he couldn't have been fined. He literally didn't understand that just because you didn't know something was against the law, that means you get immunity from consequences. While we were talking, he said he had to get rid of one of his dogs recently because neighbors kept complaining about his dog getting loose. His big German Shepherd was constantly running around our neighborhood, and a different neighbor came to talk to me about it since so many other neighbors complained. He said it wasn't his fault that the fences on his property were old and rotten when he moved in and his dog kept leaving the property. I pointed out that my dog doesn't run away or go into his yard despite our fencing needing some repairs too. He really doesn't seem to grasp that there are consequences to his actions. When talking to him, it feels like I'm trying to reason with one of the kids at the daycare I work at. I noticed how aggressive he was getting with me. I'm a short woman in my mid-20s, and he's a big burly guy in his 30s or 40s, so I was getting pretty scared. I tried some de-escalating tactics I do with the kids I work with, using a calmer voice and giving him positive reinforcement, telling him how much I've appreciated him being better with the volume of his music, and convinced him to talk to the fire department about getting a permit and to burn things on the other side of his yard, away from the house. He was much happier after that, but it was still scary to talk to a big, gruff, unstable guy by myself since my husband was at work, and to try to get him to understand that he can't light fires in his yard during fire season and that his actions are affecting my physical health. This confrontation was a few hours ago, and I'm still really suffering from the asthma attack I had earlier. My chest hurts, my throat and eyes are burning, and I've been having lots of coughing fits. My husband and I are planning on getting security cameras, and next time we will call the fire department. I told my boyfriend's daughter that I owe her nothing. I started dating Dave 3 years ago. He has a daughter, Cassie, who's almost 20, and I have a son, John, who's 16. Dave moved in with me last year. Cassie sees me as someone who broke up her parents, despite her mom and dad being divorced for a year before I even met him. She has just treated me like absolute dirt since day one, calling me every single name in the book, egging my house with her friends 2 years ago, etc. Now I convinced Dave to bring his daughter on a vacation last year shortly after he moved in with us, so he could talk to her one-on-one about her behavior and set some ground rules because her behaviors became severe after he moved in with me, to a point where I almost told him to pack his crap up. So he agrees to go on vacation with her. When they return, she says something along the lines of, "I'm sorry, but you are not my mom. You are not my family. You are nobody to me. You and your kid will never be anything more to me than you are now. I will be nice, but don't expect anything from me, and never expect me to go the extra mile for you or your kid." After that, she left. She didn't say it in an overly mean tone. She was pretty calm about it, and I didn't even know how to feel about it, honestly. She never gave me a chance to respond either, so I kind of just stood there contemplating it, and later on, Dave asked that I just give her some time. So I agreed, and we went on about our life. Now, Cassie still has nothing to do with me or my son. It's been a year since her vacation with her father. She's come here several times, but she won't engage in any conversation with us. In fact, if we say anything to her, she kind of just raises her eyebrows and nods. Well, I'm planning a vacation to Florida in 3 weeks for me, my son, and Dave. He suggested we bring Cassie, and I said she could go if she pays for it. Or him, one of the two. Cassie doesn't have a job, lives with her mom, and Dave can't afford a flight ticket for her. So she came over yesterday and stated that I should be paying for her ticket because if I wanted to make things right and build a relationship, this would be where to start. So I quoted what she had said to me last year, and I said, "I will not be going the extra mile for you, and I owe you nothing. You can come, but you or your dad will be purchasing the ticket, not me and not my kid, who works." I'm now being told that I'm petty, childish, and need to grow up because she is a kid, stating that I am the adult here, and if I want to make this work, I need to prove to Cassie that I want a relationship with her. Am I the jerk? Absolutely not the jerk. Cassie isn't a kid. She's a 20-year-old woman who knows better. She was given an opportunity to apologize, and she squandered it. Suddenly she wants OP to want to start a relationship with her because she'll get something nice out of it. She's just greedy. Opportunistic and manipulative, might I add. Any relationship that is based on someone giving the other money is no relationship worth having. My sister expects me to raise her kids now that her husband went to prison. My sister Bethany is 12 years older than me. She went to college when I was 6 and stayed in the same city after graduation, so naturally we've never been close. After college, Bethany met a guy named Adam. Adam was constantly in trouble with the law and he could never hold down a job. Against everyone's advice, Bethany stayed with Adam and eventually married him because she said that she had a thing for bad boys and that Adam made her feel edgy and exciting. Bethany and Adam have 4 kids, my 7-year-old niece, Amelia, 3-year-old twin nephews, Jack and Nico, and the youngest niece, Ray, who just turned 2. Well, almost immediately after Ray was born, Adam was charged with a serious crime, and he will be, at minimum, spending the next 6 years in prison. My parents are in their 60s. They said it was easy to help when Ray and the twins were babies, but now that they're toddlers and can outrun them, forget it. For that reason, they're asking me to begin taking care of my nieces and nephews since I work from home. They said no one would be anywhere without family, and because I'm young, I need to give back and help my family now. I told my parents and Bethany that their plan isn't even feasible. Working from home still means working. I have to speak with clients and be active in meetings. I can't constantly step away to keep an eye on their kids, especially not ones as young as Ray. Plus, I'm 25. I still have college debt to pay back. Babysitting as a teenager does not mean I'm ready to essentially become a parent to even one kid, much less 4. I also reminded Bethany that she has never really been involved in my life other than attending the same occasional holiday parties. We may share DNA, but we're practically strangers. I acknowledge the situation with Adam is unfortunate, but he showed for years that he wouldn't be a stable partner. She was 30 when they had Amelia. She wasn't a naive teenager. She chose the excitement of being with a person like Adam, and she has to deal with the consequences now. Her choices are not my responsibility. My parents told me that if I don't step up, they're going to leave everything to Bethany and the kids when they pass, and that I will not receive any major financial help from them again. I told them to do whatever they want, and essentially repeated the same thing I did to Bethany about not being responsible for her life choices. I explained the situation to some friends. They agreed that I wasn't a jerk for refusing to help with my nieces and nephews because it isn't a feasible option anyway. But I have a few of my friends who do think I was the jerk for the way I explained myself to Bethany and my parents, because no one gets married expecting to become a single parent, and what I said about Adam came off as victim-blaming Bethany for her situation. 2 of these friends said that I could at least agree to look after them during my time off since they're still my nieces and nephews. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Victim blaming? What exactly is Bethany the victim of? The victim of her own bad decisions? Get out of here. Your parents are also the jerks for holding money and inheritance over your head. Your family sounds awful. Quite frankly, if they're so concerned, then they can pay for a babysitter or something. Not the jerk. You should give the phone numbers of the friends who are saying that you're victim blaming to your sister and tell them to expect to be called for babysitting help. Just because you work from home doesn't mean you can look after kids like you said. Work from home is still work. What if you have to head to the office for a meeting or in a Zoom meeting? You can't be looking after kids and doing work. Just because you're not in an office doesn't mean that you can babysit. So your parents can say no, but not you? And what kind of parents threaten you financially like that? Tell them if they go through with that, then you'll go no contact with them. You don't need those kinds of people in your life. Am I the jerk for not having sweets in the house for my niece who's under my care? I, 27 female, have been the guardian of my niece, Zoe, who's 9, for almost a year since my brother and sister-in-law passed. I work full-time in a relatively high-stress job. Ever since I was 24, I've been on a low-carb diet. It's obviously not for everybody, but I feel better not consuming so much carbs and sugar. It helps with my weight, concentration, and energy levels. My diet consists mostly of meat served with fruits and vegetables, but if I crave a slice of pizza or a helping of pad thai every now and then, I don't beat myself up over it. When Zoe came to live with me, I made sure to have carbs for her meals, mostly rice and potatoes. I also take us out to eat once or twice a week so that we can explore different cuisines and local offerings. She has lunch at her school, and I give her a small allowance so she can buy whatever she likes within that budget. What I don't have in my home is dessert. I used to stock some when Zoe first came to live with me, and I would give her a small serving after her meal while I had some fruit. A few weeks of that, and Zoe asked why I didn't eat any dessert with her, and I told her for me, fruits are yummier and healthier. Not long after, she stopped me from buying sweets when I took her to the grocery store, and she said that she would just have fruits too, like me. I tried to serve her some dessert we had at her next meal, but she refused. A few more times of that, and I stopped offering and gave her fruits instead. Zoe and I still enjoy dessert when we go out to eat. A few days ago, a mom from Zoe's after-school club called me. She told me that she brought butterscotch pies to the club, and everyone enjoyed a piece, including Zoe. A lot of kids left school early that day, so there was a lot of leftover pie, and she offered to pack it up for everyone there to take home. All the kids took some, but Zoe didn't, and told her that we don't really have dessert at home. She was concerned that I was setting Zoe up for an eating disorder, and that kids deserve to have something sweet in the house. I told her how it was Zoe's choice to not have dessert, so I just stopped stalking them. I also told her I know Zoe occasionally bought sweets at school, so there's no need to add more sugar content to her home food. She said it was not right for me to set a low-carb diet lifestyle as an example for Zoe when she's still so young and should not be restricted from eating anything. Again, I told her that Zoe can have anything she wants and I would gladly provide any food for her. But she argued that eating is a social thing, and by seeing me abstaining from sweets, Zoe would do the same to feel like she belongs. I'm quite confused about this. I know from a rough nutrition estimate that Zoe is getting what she needs. She's rarely sick, and her martial arts instructor said she's active and enthusiastic. I also don't think I should compromise my own chosen diet so my niece can have dessert at home. Am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the friend's mom? Please let us know. Most people don't realize how dangerous sugar actually is. What constant insulin spikes can do to your body. Trying to call someone out for not feeding their kid all of that sugary crap is just stupid. But what do you expect? Most people are stupid these days. Am I the jerk for not letting a family use our pump for their deflated ball? My boyfriend and I belong to a local community center with a few basketball courts. Sometimes on the weekends, we like to go there and just shoot around and have fun. Unfortunately, the balls the community center has are almost always slightly deflated for some reason. You can remedy this by either bringing your own ball or your own pump. Since I already have a pump for my bike, we usually just bring that and let other people use it too if they ask nicely. We had the court to ourselves when a mom with her 2 sons arrived. They were between 8 and 10. No big deal. They can use the other side of the court. The kids started playing and were having trouble with the deflated ball. Mom, who was sitting and watching nearby, noticed this and noticed that our ball was pumped. She came up to us and said we need to let her kids have a turn with the ball we were using, since it was the only good one. I told her that they're all always deflated and that we actually brought a pump to fix one so we could use it. I said she couldn't have our ball, but she was welcome to use the pump to inflate the one her kids had. She seemed offended by this, scoffed at me. I suppose you're not even going to inflate it for us. I kind of paused before I was taken aback, but then responded, No, I wasn't, but I've changed my mind. Good. Yeah, now I don't think I'm going to let you use it at all. I turned back to my boyfriend and we started playing again, ignoring her stammering about how rude we were. The kids were watching the whole time and didn't say a word. They started playing again too until the mom got frustrated with us ignoring her, took them and left. After they left, my boyfriend said I went too far. He agreed that she was rude, but said I should have let them use the pump because in the end, it meant the mom got mad and the kids couldn't play anymore. While I do feel bad for them, I wasn't going to let their entitled mother steamroll me. I think that's just setting a bad precedent for both her and for her kids that they will all learn that they can just bully people into doing everything for them. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You didn't go too far and you didn't deny her the ability to use the pump. She was a jerk and lost the privilege. It's 100% on her shoulders what happened to her kids. As a culture, we put the onus on nice people to be responsible for crappy ones and making victims smooth out bad situations. Kudos to your boyfriend for not watching things go down and just suggesting he'd do it. A partner who can disagree but not override your ability to make a decision is awesome. This thought brought to the discussion by my wife. Not the jerk. You offered her a perfect solution. She was rude. Yeah, you could have been the bigger person and ended up giving her the pump, but do we even know if she would have accepted just the pump if you were polite? Or did you need to pump the ball for them too? Sounds like at the end of the conversation, she's walking away mad because you said you wouldn't pump their ball up. Lady is out of her mind. Am I the jerk for telling the truth about my 18th birthday and embarrassing my father in front of his university friends? So, to be blunt, I, 20 male, was an unwanted child. A whoops pregnancy that my parents were too religious to get rid of. As a result, I pretty much raised myself until I was kicked out at 18. I won't lie, it hurt being rejected by the people who were supposed to love me, but I'm at peace with it now. With the sad backstory out of the way, about 6 months ago, my parents reached out and started apologizing profusely. I wasn't sure about getting back in contact, but they seemed genuine, so I tentatively went ahead. Things were going well until they invited me to meet up in person. I showed up at the restaurant expecting a quiet dinner and a heart-to-heart. Instead, I found out that my father's fraternity had rented out the whole darn place for a 25-year reunion. He met me at the door and told me to act like we were a happy family in front of his old friends. I, being as hungry as I was at this point, made a beeline for the buffet. He promised me dinner, and by God, I was going to have it. I tried to blend into the background until I got to chatting with some other folks my age. My father's friends' kids, I assume. They started talking about their parents, and I nodded and smiled along. Then I was directly asked what I got for my 18th birthday, and I didn't know what to say, so I defaulted to the truth. So, what did your parents get you for your 18th birthday? I got kicked out. Cue awkward silence. Oh my god, are you okay? That sounds awful. Yeah, I'm fine. I just moved in with my aunt while I go to college. Where do y'all go? They then started to gossip about their schools, and I made myself scarce shortly afterwards. Later that night, my father started blowing up my phone, admonishing me for embarrassing him. Apparently, what I said had gotten back to my father's friends, who are now being very cold to my father. He was angry with me because it wouldn't have been a big deal to just lie and save face. So now he's in hot water with his university friends. I muted him and went to bed. I was sure that I was in the right here, but now I'm having doubts. I'm worried that my parents might not want to keep in contact after I basically threw a monkey wrench into his relationships with his university friends. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. First and foremost, you will never be the jerk for telling the truth. I don't mean any offense when I say this, but it's clear you are not at peace with what your parents did. Even in that last paragraph, you're still seeking the approval of the people who never even cared about you at all. The fact that he told, not asked, but told you to play happy family for his friends is telling you that they're not sorry at all. Even if they do go no contact, don't sweat it. They don't deserve you after what they've done. Not the jerk. Your dad tried to use you to look good in front of his buddies. The joke was on him because you told the truth. Now, think about this very carefully. Do you honestly want to be in your parents' life if all you are is a prop? You deserve to have people around you who value you for being you. I had cold parents, and it didn't matter how hard I tried. Nothing I did was ever good enough. There's no shame in walking away from emotionally mistreating parents. You deserve better than that. If I don't cut the line, you won't eat. I just received the forms for this year's food festival, and I was reminded of what happened last year. After the first lockdown, the mayor in my city decided to organize a food festival in August. Because it was successful, it has become an annual event. I've taken part in both of them and planning to take part this year also. While most participants go with tried and true recipes, I use it to try new things. Anyways, onto the story. As a crew, we had the experience from last year for what to expect. I had gone with one tweak of a standing recipe I had, pulled pork sandwiches, and one new one. The new one was a sandwich with smoked sausage, grilled onions, peppers, and eggplant, and feta cheese sauce. Since the opening hours for the festival were 11 to 2300, we planned on having a 3-man crew, 2 cooks, 1 apprentice, on site, with enough food to cover the rush hour of lunch and restock when the crew changed at 1700. If they needed anything, they would give us a call and we would bring it from the shop. We were about 500 yards away. That fateful August day, we received a call from the crew around 1300 that they were running low on vegetables and cheese sauce. Apparently, a cruise ship had anchored outside of the city's port and had debarked most of their passengers for 12 hours in the city, and most of them hit the food festival. So I grab a portable fridge, load it with vegetables and sauce, and I head to the stand. Having a pass, I move fast through the entrance, and I catch some glares. As I stepped inside the food court, I noticed that almost every stand had a huge line in front of them. As I move past our line to reach the stand's door, I hear people shouting, "Hey, where are you going?" and "Get back in line." I'm almost to the door when somebody grabs my shoulder. I turn around to see a gray-headed older man dressed in a classic tourist attire, light yellow shirt, khaki shorts, white socks and sandals, and a hat. Tourist still holding my shoulder. "You can't cut the line like this. People are waiting." Me. First, remove your hand from me. Second, I need to cut the line. Tourist. "No, you need to get back in line." At that point, one of my cooks is almost hanging over the counter, waiting for the ingredients, and I'm starting to lose my temper, but I give it one more try. I need to go in there to tourist, who's now red in the face and shouting, "No, you need to get back in line and wait for your food. Young people these days." Well, that was it for trying. Now for my inner Neanderthal. Me, forcibly removing his hand from my shoulder. Me, not cut line. You no eat. He looked at me shocked, when finally my cook shouted, "Hey boss, can I have the stuff now?" I handed him the fridge and told him not to sell to that guy. My cook's reply, "I know better than to feed wild animals." Boss punished me by reducing my hours, but didn't tell the other boss. I was working remotely for a staffing agency, organizing and managing events. When I was initially hired on, it was due to the fact that 3 employees were quitting. They all seemed to be leaving amicably to pursue other ventures, so I didn't think anything of it. They had hired myself and one other person to replace them, and everything was going fine. Over time, I started to notice little things here and there, like issues due to miscommunication between the owners, a married couple, and a heavy workload. A few months in, I was assaulted and had been injured pretty badly. It was really difficult, obviously, but I worked remotely, so I was still able to work. I told my bosses I had an emergency and was injured and needed to take time off. Almost immediately, one of the owners called and left an angry-sounding voicemail. I called him back and ended up having to tell him that I had been assaulted and went to the hospital and all of that. He seemed sympathetic, but near the end of the conversation, he noted that I was supposed to be managing an event that weekend, Friday through Sunday, and that they had no one else to manage it. He didn't do any of that, but his wife did. However, we always had at least 5 events we were organizing and managing at a time. I was afraid I would get fired, so I ended up having to work that weekend. It wasn't so bad, but I was in an incredible amount of pain, and due to my injuries, the doctor said they couldn't prescribe me any strong pain medication due to complications that may arise. I worked that weekend and pushed through. Shortly after that, they fired another employee and gave me her workload. Then they chose me to do a very long-running, 2-month-plus event taking place in 2 different time zones. They initially decided the event would be split between myself and another employee. She was pregnant, it matters for context, due to the size of the program. So while I was dealing with the assault and healing, took 1 month for my injuries to heal, I was also doing the majority of the workload of this event. I was also having to plan a move, put my stuff in a storage unit, and living in a long-term sublet while I looked for a place. I was also organizing other events on top of that, so there were days where I would easily work for 10+ hours. Eventually, the employee who was helping me went on maternity leave, so the whole program landed on my shoulders. One day I got reprimanded for working overtime. I explained that the workload was heavy, and since I was managing events in 2 time zones, I was having to wake up super early in the morning, 4 a.m., work during the day, take a long lunch, work some more, then wrap up the other event, which ended in the evening, 10:30 to 11 p.m. They basically told me I needed to manage my time better. Well, I was not doing well mentally or physically, so my cognitive abilities weren't the best. I was making small, easily fixable mistakes here and there, but nothing that was damaging or severely detrimental to the business. There were days I would just sit there crying at my desk. It was awful. Another employee had also been reprimanded for working overtime, and she was as swamped as I was. Eventually, one of my bosses emailed me and said I was still working too much overtime and that he wanted me to work only 5 hours on days where I wasn't managing the big event. I was relieved, honestly. I was looking forward to having more time for myself so I could heal. I made sure to email him back to confirm the non-show management days he wanted me to work 5 hours for the following week. Well, he didn't tell his wife, the other owner, about my new hours, and she had a tendency to ramble about stuff during meetings, making them last way longer than they needed to be. One day we had a meeting in the morning that lasted 3 hours, and it was the first day I was to only work 5 hours. I didn't even need to be in that meeting, but they forced me to stay and would get irritated if they knew myself or other employees were quietly working while listening to the meeting. After that meeting, the wife sends me messages asking the progress of some things I was working on. She then added more things for me to do. The back and forth with her took about 20 minutes. I told her that I knew I wouldn't have enough time to finish those things that day because I only had a little over an hour and a half to complete the other tasks I'd already been assigned. She had no idea what I was talking about, so I told her that her husband had reduced my hours on non-management days and forwarded her our email exchange where he confirmed I was only to work 5 hours that day. She got an attitude with me and said, "Well, these are high priority things and we need you to work on them. You can go ahead and work longer today." I told her I couldn't because I had confirmed a week prior and had made arrangements and was not going to be able to work. So once I hit my 5 hours, I clocked out and put my phone on Do Not Disturb, ignoring all of the messages she was sending me. She ended up having to work on all of the tasks she had given me, late into the night. I continued to follow the new schedule, and they just dumped my workload onto other employees or had to do it themselves. I eventually got fired because they said that was basically the last straw, but I was so relieved and also got unemployment benefits, even though they tried to fight it. Am I the jerk for telling my stepsister that no one cares about her wedding after she wouldn't stop comparing it to mine? I, 23 female, have a stepsister, Maggie, who's 27, whose mother, Miranda, is married to my dad. I grew up mainly with my mother and stepfather, so didn't see Miranda or Maggie that often. Also, Maggie and Miranda have a massive chip on their shoulders about my dad's extended family, so they stopped coming to most group things, and I spent a lot of time staying with my grandparents during holidays, so I saw them even less. For various reasons, most of my dad's family has converged in the same area over the last couple of years, so we see each other more often. Maggie got married last year, and I'm getting married this summer. The weddings are not close together and not comparable in terms of venue, size, aesthetic, literally anything, but that hasn't stopped Maggie from comparing them incessantly. She's annoyed that my dad offered to pay for mine. I refused, but didn't for hers. She's mad that I'm wearing heirloom jewelry for my wedding that she wasn't offered. She's mad that extended family will be attending my wedding when they didn't attend hers. She has gone so far as to say that she should have married my fiancé since she's closer in age to him, and they skipped her. She believes my marriage was arranged. It seems to boil down to that she didn't get the wedding she wanted, and she's still bitter about it. About a week ago, the family, a bunch of us, we had dinner together. The subject of a family member came up and their accommodation for the wedding, and Maggie chimed in to say how nice it was that they were able to make it to mine because they were too busy to come to hers. No one acknowledged what she had said, so she started to talk about the excuse they had given at a stupidly loud volume so that everyone had to listen. I'm not a confrontational person, but a mix of wine and exhaustion took over, and I said, "No one cared about your wedding a year ago, and they're not going to start today, so just please spare us." There was an awkward silence until everyone moved on, but Maggie started crying and quietly left the table and eventually went home. My dad says she's too humiliated to talk to anyone and probably won't come to the wedding. My dad is pressuring me to apologize because Miranda is giving him a hard time, as is Maggie. He says I knew how much it hurt Maggie that a lot of the family was not part of her wedding, and while she has taken it too far, I went for the jugular and I didn't need to because she wasn't disparaging to me. She was just inappropriately expressing bottled up feelings. To me, it felt like she was using my important life event to draw attention to herself, which felt unfair and mean-spirited, which is why I reacted the way I did. That said, it seems like she's not brushing off my comment as easily as I did hers, so I'm wondering if I took it too far. Not the jerk. I understand why she would be upset if people did not attend her wedding, but to keep bringing it up is just too much. I'm confused about why she thought it was okay to bring up her wedding while the family was discussing OP's wedding. Then she wants to be shocked when OP finally claps back. Not the jerk. She's angry that her stepfather's extended family wasn't excited about her wedding? I assume her mother also has a family. You also said neither of them go to family events on your dad's side often. Why does she want people she doesn't have in her life at her special day? I'm getting married fairly soon and chose to only invite people who have made an effort to be in my life. My half-sister is demanding to work for my family business. My mom passed when I was 4. I have 2 older brothers who were 6 and 7 when she passed. Our dad remarried just after my 9th birthday and had 2 kids with his second wife. My brothers and I are 28, 30, and 31 now, and my half-sister recently turned 15. My brothers and I work with our mom's parents. She set up a restaurant with them before she had us, and our grandparents have told us we'll be the owners eventually. As it is, we make decisions like owners. My half-sister is obsessed with being a chef. She watches all the cooking shows and wants to be famous. Recently, she started asking if she can work at the restaurant and start to get to know the family business. She said she'd love to take over as head chef one day, and her mom could be head waitress. My brothers told her she was getting way too carried away, but she got all excited. She ended up talking to our dad about working for us. He said he was okay with it as long as we were. We're not. When it comes down to it, this is a business our mom started with her parents for us to take over someday, for our family. And none of us believe she would want our dad's second wife or our half-siblings who are nothing to her working there and taking such a huge place in it. We know our grandparents aren't comfortable with it either. I'm the most gentle out of us 3, so I told her she couldn't work for us. I encouraged her to find somewhere else to work instead. She asked me why, and I told her it was a decision made by those of us who owned and ran the business. She asked me how it could be a family business if we don't allow family to work there. Then said how her mom should have been asked a long time ago. I told her that wouldn't make sense since her mom isn't related to my grandparents, the owners, and that ultimately it's my mom's legacy for her kids, and how we're trying to honor that. She said it was dumb and forget how my mom would feel when she can't even speak about it. My dad and his wife are so upset we turned her down. They said she is our family, and that should be what matters. It also brought some bitterness up about Dad's wife not being offered a place at the restaurant years ago. Seems there's been some weirdness because Dad had worked alongside Mom and my grandparents for a while when they were first married. Am I the jerk? ETA. A lot of it revolves around money and legalities. When my dad got married, his wife approached my grandparents and told them she wanted to adopt me and my brothers, and how she and my dad wanted her to be the one to take control of any money that was meant to go to us, including savings my mom left my grandparents in control of. She told them she was going to be our mom now, and that she would be taking over finances for the family, that she needed to know everything we had and wanted access to it. When my brothers and I said no to being adopted, she and Dad approached my grandparents about having a conversation with us, and brought up the fact that they hadn't done any of the other stuff asked. She told them she was not comfortable with our photo being in the restaurant and said they needed to take it down. It was a photo of us with our mom and grandparents, because they were the parents now. The tone was set from there, and I suspect they must have asked to work in the business with the clear resentment they have that they weren't employed there a long time ago. Can't confirm it, but it was clearly expected my grandparents would ask Dad and his wife to work there. Not the jerk. Your grandparents are the owners. You have no say. If she wants to be a chef, great. Your dad and stepmom should help her. McDonald's is a good place to start for her. And maybe culinary school first, if she wants to become a famous chef, unless she's Gordon Ramsay in disguise. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. She's family, but not to your grandparents on your mom's side. That makes sense. Very entitled, the mom and the daughter are. Neither one of them deserve to work there, especially after disregarding and disrespecting your late mom's feelings and legacy. I'd ban them from the place for life. No one is owed anything. Sis feels this is something she's entitled to, and next thing you know, she wants her stake in it. This isn't her family's business, and neither she or her mother belong working there in any capacity whatsoever. Grandparents and siblings all agree, case closed. I can somewhat see why your half-sister is upset, but also not because of the entitlement of her, and more so her mom is clearly strong. OP, the fact that your maternal grandparents aren't comfortable could be significant on a number of levels. I may be grasping at some straws here, but I'm willing to bet that your stepmom has tried to throw her weight around with the family business before now. It sounds like your dad has no ownership of and little involvement since your mom passed, so he can buzz off trying to tell you or your brothers and his late wife's parents what to do with your restaurant and her legacy. In response to another comment, the stepmom and half-sister don't want to simply work at the restaurant. It sounds like they want to run the show. The sis is a teenager. Where do you think she gets all the aggro and defensiveness about her mom not being involved years ago? It's likely been taught to her by her mom. Not the jerk. Stick with your instincts and dodge these 2 bullets and honor your mom's wishes. Am I the jerk for letting my daughter cry instead of fetching her tablet? Context. 6 years ago, my wife was laid off. She struggled to find a job in the following months, and we couldn't afford raising the kids, 2 boys and 1 girl, with my salary. An old client offered me a well-paying job overseas, so I took it. Last month, I came back after I agreed with the company to work from home, and they made the legal arrangements for it. When I was overseas, I'd talk to them every day and visit once a year. Whenever I was with them, I could notice that my wife was spoiling our daughter. I'd talk to her about it, but she'd tell me she knows what she's doing and that she's the one raising her every day, and that there's no harm in treating her like a princess. Our daughter is now 9, and while she's still our daughter and will always be, she's not exclusively that, and will need to start relying on herself more. When I came back, I found out that my wife has been doing her homework. My teenagers told me that my mom bought their sister 3 iPads that she smashed when having tantrums in the last year and bought her a new one 2 months ago. If our daughter asks for something, she will not stop crying until we get it for her. She'd literally be sitting on the couch and start screaming, "Water!" until someone brings it to her. If she forgot her tablet upstairs, she'll order her brothers to go get it for her, and if they refuse, she'll start crying. Yesterday, she tried doing the same. I ordered my boys to stay still, and I told her to go fetch it herself. She kept crying for 15 minutes. I was hugging her all the time and comforting her. When she stopped, I told her that she still has to go get it herself, but I will follow her if she wants. She was still annoyed, but replied saying that she's a big girl and can fetch it by herself. When my wife came back from an errand, I told her what happened. Instead of supporting me, she was angry at me for letting her cry and told me that I was a jerk who preferred to let his daughter cry for 15 minutes instead of taking 30 seconds to help her. I didn't expect that reaction from her. I told her that she's ruining our daughter, and if we keep treating her like that, we will raise a pathetic person who can't rely on themselves for the simplest thing. I told her that she needs to stop doing her homework, and instead, we should guide her to figure out the answers by herself. And we should also make her do the chores her brothers did when they were her age. She replied that I was welcome to keep being a jerk to our daughter, but she'll keep treating her nicely. She warned me to not cry or feel guilty when my daughter grows up and wants nothing to do with me. The last thing I want is for my daughter to despise me, but at the same time, I want her to grow up to be a strong, independent woman. We aren't going to be with her for the rest of her life, and even if we were, it's important for every adult to be able to fend for themselves. Hold her and comfort her while she cried because she couldn't be bothered to go upstairs to retrieve her iPad at 9 years old? Are you serious? This girl needs a real shift in reality. OP needs to stop with that immediately, although he is not the jerk as he understands just how bad it is and has the right idea. OP's wife is a jerk though. She sure doesn't mind treating her daughter better than the boys, as if that's not going to push them away, like she called out OP on the way he wants to treat his daughter. If you can, OP, please intervene. Get help, something. I honestly don't have any advice on what to do here, other than to encourage your daughter to do things for herself and not replace things once they're broken, and teach her about actual real life. But that girl is going to struggle in adulthood and future relationships if this continues. Karen demands I pay her hospital bills for having her baby. My immediate family consists of me, 27 male, my wife, who's 29, and our son, who's 8. We rely solely on my income to make ends meet, and while it is sufficient for our own needs, we don't have any extra money to spare. My wife's older sister, who's 31, is going through financial difficulties due to her poor choice in a partner. Her husband was incarcerated for theft while she was pregnant with their first kid. Out of sympathy, we assisted her with everything, and we paid for her pregnancy-related expenses. However, as soon as her husband was released, she became pregnant again. Her husband is lazy and only works a few days per month, sometimes going for months without any employment. Given their situation, I ended up financially supporting her second pregnancy as well. On both occasions, we also gifted her some money. Shortly after giving birth to her second, she became pregnant again with a third baby. At this time, my family was undergoing significant adjustments in our own lives, which involved substantial expenses. During her pregnancy, she repeatedly asked for loans that she never repaid, but we anticipated this and didn't plan on asking for the money back. When the expected date of her third baby's birth arrived, we visited the hospital and provided a monetary gift as we had always done. After the baby was born, the hospital expenses had to be paid, and the sister's husband, who's 38, and his family, they looked at me when the bill arrived. I remained silent and he handed me the bill. I then explained that I couldn't cover the hospital expenses this time. I told him that we had never agreed upon it in the first place. Additionally, I pointed out that the amount we had gifted her was roughly the same as the hospital bill, so it should have covered it. The husband became angry and started speaking negatively about me. He called me a jerk for not paying. His family members also appeared angry and openly criticized both me and my wife. I responded by saying that they can't expect me to pay when we didn't even agree on it beforehand. Am I the jerk? More info. We're from a developing country where government assistance is rare and insufficient. Banking is limited, with most people relying on cash. Insurance is almost non-existent, and upfront payment is required for everything. Loans are mostly inaccessible to the general population. Private hospitals are expensive, while government hospitals are relatively more affordable but still require upfront payment. While a few hospitals allow post-operation payment, it is still required within a short time frame, usually within a few days, before leaving the premises. Not the jerk, but you should stop enabling your sister-in-law. It must be super difficult to see her in this situation, but as long as you provide financial support, she has no reason to change her situation. Not the jerk. If the husband and his family are so upset, they can open their wallets and shut their mouths. Frankly, you're a better person than me. I wouldn't have paid for any of the expenses for any of their kids. Not the jerk. The thing is, you created expectations on their part when you paid before. They assumed that you'd shell out the money like you've done in the past. That's on them. Am I the jerk for spending a lot of time in my bunker away from my family? My grandfather was an incredibly talented man who also suffered from paranoid schizophrenia, and he was convinced that war was going to end the human race at some point. So he built his own bunker and then buried the entrance because he was convinced that both the KGB and the CIA were watching him and wanted to keep the bunker a secret. Yes, he was a crazy man. My dad inherited his house but never lived there. So when I had my first kid in 2018 and we got married in 2019, my dad made me an incredibly generous offer for the house. I bought computers that were more expensive than the house. The bunker became kind of an urban legend, mostly because my old grandpa used to tell a lot of crazy stories. But out of curiosity, I went looking for it and I found the entrance. The old man really did it. So thanks to being stuck at home during the uneventful 2020 and 2021, I started remodeling the bunker to look a lot less like a fallout vault and more like my own man cave. Everyone loves it, especially the kids, my nephews and friends' kids. So the house is decorated to my wife's taste while I can do whatever I want in the bunker. Play games, fix computers, set up a whole home server, work from home, etc. However, lately, she's been complaining about me being distant and spending a lot of time there and less time with her and our kid. She's pregnant again, so she said she was worried, but I just promised to spend more time at the house. After a few weeks, that wasn't enough for her, and she accused me of abandoning her. I'm asking for judgment here because I'm trying to be there for my family, but this bunker feels like it's the only thing that's really mine and where I can actually have a break. But my wife has said she's going to seal the entrance, otherwise I might miss the birth and not even notice. Should I just move all of my stuff into the house and forget about it? Am I really being neglectful, or is this just her pregnancy hormones talking? To be clear, I do help with the house chores and I spend time with my son when I'm there, and I have an intercom in the bunker, so my wife can just call me if she needs anything and I'll go up there immediately. ETA. Everybody is asking me this. I spend at least 6 hours at the bunker on weekdays. I work there, so I think it's reasonable, and at least 4 hours on the weekends. But yeah, you're right, I need to make arrangements. I forgot to mention, our son goes to kindergarten, so my wife has time to work and sometimes be alone at home. ETA 2. Guys, I swear I'm taking notes. I'm just trying to understand what I should change about myself and how to talk to my wife about this. Remember that I spend at least 6 hours working, not scratching my belly. My manager allows me to log out early if I'm finished from my work for the day, but I can't log out if I've been working for less than 6 hours. I also spend time talking with my team on Slack. ETA 3. So many of you are picking up on my language. I would appreciate if you explain calmly why my choice of words is so bad so I don't mess things up when I speak to my wife. Mini update. I had a talk with my wife. Overall, I think it went well since she told me everything, but there are so many raw emotions right now, and I was sent to sleep in the spare room. She had no mercy on me, but we needed this talk so we can have a clear path for our future together. You're the jerk. Where's your wife's bunker equivalent, and how many hours per week does she get in that space versus you in your bunker? Way to go, putting 100% of the mental load on your wife in no uncertain terms. ETA. It's absolutely valid for OP to spend his work hours in the bunker. I believe the problems of balance exist outside of the working hours. You're the jerk. Not for spending time in the bunker. That sounds cool. I would also be in there all the time. But for considering ignoring your wife, who's pretty directly telling you that you aren't spending enough time with your family and being distant. You started a family, dude. It's not all about you anymore. Info. You say you like going there so you can get a break. Does your wife get a break? How many hours daily are you spending in it? Edit. Based on replies, you're the jerk. You're spending 6 hours minimum on a weekday and then 4 hours on a weekend? You also didn't answer me about if your wife gets a break, so should I assume that she doesn't? Do you even like your wife? I'm pretty done with men claiming to be active parents when really the bare minimum is being done. And you want praise for helping out when you're home? OP, you're the jerk. Your wife is pregnant and you're relying on her to take the full mental load at home while you get away time. Do you not see how insanely selfish that is, especially in comparison to everything she's going through? Please grow up. Your wife and kids deserve a lot more than an absentee father/husband. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or is his wife? Please let us know. Tell OP I'm on my way to the bunker. I'm bringing our tinfoil hats and survival seeds. They're putting fluoride in our water. Am I the jerk for counting down the days until my daughter turns 18 so I can stop being legally responsible for her? I married my wife about 2 years ago and she has a daughter from a previous relationship. Early on during our dating period, she made it clear that her daughter has a father and she's not looking for another father for her. The ground rules were set by her that I would be an adult figure, but not a parental one. I will have no say in how she is to be brought up, and I can't punish her in any way. Considering she was 14 when her mom and I met and 15 when we married, I agreed to her rules. My thinking was that she's already too old for me to make any difference in her life, so why make it an issue? Fast forward a couple of years, and my life has been a nightmare. The girl constantly gets into trouble and has been kicked out of several schools. She lived with her father at the time. She had to move in with us so she could attend a new high school in order to graduate. She's been suspended several times at this high school, but it looks like she'll graduate on time. While living with us, she's been in 2 accidents, once where she had been drinking, and we had to remortgage our house to pay for her attorney fees and legal bills. Oh man, dang. The judge dressed us down in court for not being better parents. I'm not a legal expert at all, but from movies and shows, I know that judges can jail you for arguing, so I bit my tongue and I just took it. It was humiliating. The girl is a couple months away from being an adult, and this weekend I was out with the guys and she came up in conversation. I complained about how much money I've spent bailing her out of trouble and that I can't wait until she turns 18 so she can face her own consequences. Word got back to my wife and she blew up. I still don't think I said anything wrong, but I'm staying at a motel tonight. I want to be clear. We're not kicking her out, and considering she doesn't work, she'll be living with us for a while. I'm just waiting for the day she's an adult, so I won't be yelled at by any more judges. Update. Thank you for taking the time to read my post. I wrote it while I was very angry, so I left out some details. Here's some answers to some common questions. 1. I built the house myself before I met my wife, so it's solely mine. I call it ours, not because she's on the papers, but because she's been living here and we're married. My wife doesn't really ask me to help out, but I make more than her and her ex combined. She struggles to pay for her daughter and could never afford an attorney. I know my wife would be heartbroken if her only kid went to jail, so I decided to pay for the attorney to keep my wife sane. 2. The biological dad lives several states away, and he's gone low contact with his daughter. I'm not exactly sure why, because I was never told the reason. I didn't have to go to court, but my wife had to go, so I took the day off to go and support her. When the judge ordered the parents to come to stand before him, my wife could barely walk, so I held her arm and helped her to the bench, which was why I was standing there. I've never had any dealings with the court outside of speeding tickets, and I took care of those with the clerks. Standing in front of a judge who can jail me made me terrified, and having him yell at me was the most humiliating thing I've gone through, which is the main reason why I'm so excited for this girl to turn 18, so I will no longer be called out in front of a judge. The first car she wrecked was her mother's old car that was gifted to her when I bought my wife a new car. The second car she wrecked was my old car I gave to her when I bought myself a new car. There's been no talks of getting her another car because her license has been suspended. If you're not a parental figure, why are you paying for these things at all? You're a saint for putting up with this. Not the jerk. Mom wants to have her cake and eat it too. Dude, why are you so worried about being jailed? Trust me, you're already in a prison of your own making. Not the jerk. Not the jerk, but you should probably be rethinking your whole marriage because this is not going to stop when she turns 18. In life, sometimes you get what you accept. You get what you settle for. You have to set firm boundaries with people and hold those boundaries. Never let yourself be used, mistreated, or taken advantage of like this. Exactly. The only reason I let Karen insult me the way she does is because I know she doesn't exist. She's just a voice inside my head that preys on my own insecurities. Let's not get carried away now, Reddit boy. I may be a figment of your imagination, but I still have feelings. Am I the jerk for not sharing my travel plans with my parents? I, female 28, moved back to my parents' house last year after getting out of a terrible relationship. We don't get along well. My mother disapproves of many of my life choices and relationships. Meanwhile, I've met someone else, and we've been dating for 6 months now, but I haven't shared this with my parents and don't feel comfortable doing so. We're traveling together next week, and as I live at home, I need to inform my parents that I will be leaving for a week. My mother is already grilling me regarding where I'm going and with who, and guilt-tripping me because I live at her house and she's my mother and entitled to know. She also feels she should know for my safety in case something happens to me. I don't pay rent, so I feel some accountability towards her. I plan on maintaining that I don't want to share and keeping things private. Would I be the jerk? Okay, here's some extra info. My friends know where I'm going, and so does my boyfriend's family. I've been dating this person for 6 months, but we've been coworkers in the past. This is not some random person that I don't know at all. The decisions my mother doesn't agree with are all of them. From my outfit choices, to the color I chose to dye my hair, to how I place silverware in the dishwasher, to mocking food allergies. She has unsolicited negative comments to add to just about everything, and this is why I don't feel comfortable sharing my relationship, which is great, with her. I would absolutely love to share my trip with them. I just know she'll cast a shadow to it. My parents do not accept rent from me. I do pay for my food and anything that's consumed by me. My brother, male 24, comes and goes as well and faces none of this. At the moment, he's living abroad and my parents support him. I have a great job. However, I live in a country where the average monthly salary is less than 1 month rent for a 1-bedroom apartment. The only people my age that I know that were able to move out are double-income couples. I'm saving 70% of every paycheck towards buying a house. I also budget for traveling. Again, I live somewhere flooded by tourism, where housing is not affordable to locals at all. Edit 2. I've shared with my father that I will be traveling from this day to this day and that they can reach me through WhatsApp. His reaction was a simple, okay. I believe my mother is not asking for details out of concern. When I share the necessary details with her, she will probe for more and more until she has enough info to pass judgment. I'm assuming because it's happened in the past. Not the jerk. I'm traveling to this place for a week. If there's an emergency, you can leave word here. I'll see you in a week. That's all. This will be an unpopular opinion, but I think it needs to be said. You're the jerk. The thing is, I can understand why your mom is asking. They don't know you had a steady and stable relationship for months. The only thing they know is that you apparently don't have a good enough job or money to get your own place, but you're suddenly disappearing for a week to God knows where with God knows who. And you refuse to tell anyone anything about your supposed trip for no apparent reason? And you're being dodgy about it? You and we know that you'll be safe with someone that you're comfortable with. They don't. I'd be majorly concerned too, and halfway wondering if next time I hear anything, it'll be about you on the news. If you don't want parents in your business, then you need to move out. If you're not willing to move out, then you need to learn to talk to them and set your boundaries. Am I the jerk for not refunding my friends after we canceled our trip? I, female 25, was planning a trip to Paris with my girlfriends, whom I've known for a few years, for an event at TwitchCon. We've been planning this trip since February, and we were really excited to go on this trip together. But here's the problem. A lot of them were struggling with money, and knowing this trip was going to cost a lot, I was willing to chip in more for payments, so that way they were comfortable and able to enjoy Paris without worrying about money. We found an Airbnb that was a reasonable price and was close to everything in Paris. The total price for the Airbnb was $2,567 Canadian dollars, with the first down payment being $1,300. Since it was 4 of us, the split cost would have been $326 each, but knowing my friends are struggling with money, I was trying to be nice and make them pay around $200. So that means I paid $599 Canadian dollars while they had it cheaper. Fast forward a few months, March. One of the girls backed out, but told me to keep the money since she did promise to pay, which for her was very mature and kind. I was even willing to give her money back since I know that she's struggling, but the kindness of her heart allowed me to keep it so I didn't have to spend more out of my pocket. Now we are in the present time, where another girl backed out after ghosting us for months, not letting us know if she would truly be on the trip or not. She kept saying she's waiting on her passport since it's been a few months since applying. We were understanding and just wanted to know if she's down to go so we can book our plane tickets. She made us wait for months with no update. Now that's 2 out of 4 of us not going. Knowing that I have to pay for college and the second half of the Airbnb payment back to back, I started to stress out over money. So I told the girls we should just cancel and save up for another time. I tried contacting Airbnb to see if I can get a refund of my $1,300 for them to tell me that I won't get a dime back. Now I'm down $1.3 thousand and 2 of the girls are demanding me to refund them their $200. Logically, that's not fair or right in my opinion. Since I paid more than they did, I was the one that lost the most, and for them to come at me demanding I give them their money back that I didn't even get back? I would understand if I got the refund and kept it, but them knowing I didn't get a dime back and still demanding their money has really upset me. I explained the situation for them to go, "It's not my problem." One of the girls has even threatened to take me to court over a small claim case. Right now I'm on the fence because I know I'm not in the wrong, but them manipulating me by threatening to take me to court has been making me feel like I am in the wrong. After I was being so kind and understanding of their finances, they don't even consider mine. Is it wrong to think if there is no refund, no one should get a refund? If anything, they owe me money. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You're not getting a refund from Airbnb. Therefore, they aren't getting a refund either. It's pretty simple. Not the jerk, but your friends are. Next time, do not volunteer to pay more. Instead of canceling, you can try postponing the trip on Airbnb and maybe go there with your family or a different set of friends at a much cheaper time. Worth a try. Not the jerk, or at least not quite, but you didn't handle it well. Barbie and Joan canceled out. This leaves us with two choices. We can simply cancel and lose our deposits, or we can still go, but it will cost this much more for each of us to cover their share. What do you think? You get buy-in and no hard feelings because they made the decision. Entitled mom steals my iPad and demands I let her kid keep it. I work at a car dealership as a receptionist, one of my duties being greeting customers when they enter. I'm a professional artist on the side, and I've been busy with some commissions lately, so since it's not busy at the dealer, I started working on my iPad mini. It's old and I'm working on upgrading, but I currently can't afford to, so I live with it despite the battery life being really short, and I have to basically keep it plugged in at all times. During my lunch, I was in the waiting area doing more work when a kid, a girl no older than 4, came up and watched me work. This happens a lot when I draw in public, and usually the kids just ask a lot of questions, but this nice girl was very quiet and just had a look of amazement, so I let her be. Her mother, the entitled mom in this story, was nearby at a salesman's desk working on purchasing a new car, which is a long and no doubt boring process. The salesman working with her walked away, which at my dealership they do very often to retrieve paperwork, talk to the sales and finance managers, etc. She looks over at me and her kid and asks, "What are you looking at?" Her kid points at my screen and says, "She's painting puppies." I was working on Twitch emotes of a streamer's dog. I sort of show my screen to entitled mom, and then she asks her kid if she wants to draw. Watches the girl says excitedly, "Yes." I expected entitled mom to pull out a paper and pencils, or at least ask if I can get some for her too, but she just looked at me expectantly. When I realized she was waiting for me to hand her my iPad, I said, "Oh, she can't use mine, but I can get her a notepad and pens." But apparently that wasn't good enough. She sighs and says, "Just let her draw a little bit. I'm almost done here anyway." Which I knew for a fact wasn't true. They were waiting on a bank approval for a loan, which can take anywhere between 5 to 30 minutes, and even then they'll be here longer for financing paperwork, detailing, etc. I start to explain that this is part of my work, and she scoffs, saying I'm just doodling puppies and it was selfish that I wouldn't let the nice girl doodle on my device too. Poor nice girl was just looking at her hands, looking quite embarrassed. I then pretended my lunch was over and got up to spend the rest of my lunch at my desk. I couldn't see her behind a huge truck on display, but I can hear her grumble to nice girl about who knows what. Whatever. I pretend like I didn't hear so I don't mess up this sale for my coworker. Sometime later, nature called me and I get up to go to the restroom. I left my iPad on my seat so it would stay plugged in, and I put a notepad over it to try to cover it up somehow. My desk is a wide crescent shape with no drawers to keep my things safe, so this was the best I could do to somewhat hide it. I was in the restroom no longer than 3 minutes, but when I got back, only my charger remained. My iPad and Apple Pencil were gone. I looked over to the lady who had her large purse suspiciously in her lap now instead of on the floor beside her chair like it was before. I was panicked because a lot of my work is on that iPad that I needed. I went to my sales manager and told him the situation. He told me he would take care of it, but to be patient for now. I went back to my desk full of anxiety and my stomach doing backflips. Sales manager went to the desk where entitled mom was to work out the deal. They're far enough that I can hear their voices but not pinpoint what they're saying, but I did hear her eventually yell, "How dare you! I would never steal. Do you want to lose this sale?" I immediately got up and went over behind the lady so sales manager could see me, but she couldn't. He tells her he understands, but my iPad went missing and he wants to make sure no one currently in the building has it. That's when I remembered the Find My feature on all Apple products. My iPad was connected to the dealer's Wi-Fi, so I pulled out my iPhone and pressed play sound for my iPad. Her purse started dinging. She tried to play it off as if it's her ringtone, and sales manager stared at her as if daring her to answer it. Thing is, with the play sound feature, if I keep pressing it, it will keep pinging. I made my presence known and told her to give my iPad back. That's when she stopped playing dumb and just said, "Just let nice girl have it. Her birthday is coming up, and I can't afford a present for her since I'm getting this car." Sales manager said he was happy to cancel the deal so she can instead buy a birthday present for her kid and to return my iPad or he'll call the police. She practically threw my iPad at me where it hit me in the gut and took nice girl from the waiting area to leave. Poor thing looked at me with the most apologetic look on her face before leaving with her mother. Sales manager might have helped me, but he's not exactly the nicest person. From now on, I'm not allowed to bring my iPad to the dealer. I have to either leave it in my car or leave it at home. Whatever. Entitled mom took my Apple Pencil with her since she left in a hurry, so I'm gonna stop by the Apple store after work to get a new one. But until then, I'm stuck with my pens and notepad. Edit. I got off work, and Apple Pencils cost like $120. The first generation. The one entitled mom took, I bought secondhand for $70. What on earth? Am I the jerk for cutting my son's college funds since he refuses to visit me? I, 38 male, have 3 kids, 18 son, 16 son, and 13 daughter. But one of them isn't my biological son, the one who's 16. I found out about this 3 years ago. It was a messy situation, so I ended up divorcing my wife and leaving. I moved to another city because I needed time to heal. I wasn't physically involved in my kids' life for 2 years, but I called them every day and talked to them. I also paid child support for the 3 of them. Here's where I know I did a terrible thing, and maybe that's why Alexander is mad at me and doesn't want to see me. When I called my kids, I only called Sophia and Raphael, who are 13 and 18, because I felt uncomfortable talking to Alexander. One day he was angry and grabbed the phone crying and said, "Don't you love me, Dad? Why are they more important to you?" I politely replied and said, "Honey, look, I love you, but I need some time to heal. I'm still your father and I'll be back soon." He knows I'm not his biological father. I talked to him through messages because I didn't feel completely comfortable doing a FaceTime. I moved back to my city last year with my new partner to settle down, and my kids, who are 13 and 18, came to visit me immediately. But Alexander didn't come, so I went to his mom to see what was going on, and I talked to him and also apologized for treating him the way I did, but he refused to come to my house and said that he only wanted to hang out with me, and we did that. When he found out my wife, he refused to come to my wedding, was pregnant, he told me not to visit him again. Then I found that his mom was seeing Alexander's biological father, so I thought that my son wanted a relationship with his biological dad instead. So even if it hurts, I respected his wishes until I found out that he rejects this guy. Raphael said that one day this guy was trying to spend time with him, but Alexander said, "Look, dude, no hard feelings, but don't try to force a fatherly role on me because you are not my dad and I already have one." So I decided to invite him again to live with me because my other 2 kids live with me 80% of the time and he's the only one who refuses. My daughter was born 6 days ago and he hasn't come to see his half-sister. So I called him and said that if he doesn't come to see me, I'll be cutting his college fund. He told me to buzz off and then hung up. My mom's saying that I'm being a jerk for threatening him that way. Am I the jerk? Seriously, I don't see the point of paying a college fund for a kid that doesn't even want to see me. You abandoned your son, who no doubt took this news as hard or harder than you did. You turned your back on him. Now you want him to dance like a trained monkey playing to your whims so he can have a future? You're the jerk. A very selfish jerk. Your poor, poor son. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.